Other people, when they die, they say their life flashes before their eyes. Me? I saw a leaderboard. Rank 1. Itchy. World's #1 player, Ethereum Online, 7 years and 4 months at the top. And then a red line of text I'll remember forever, if I remember anything at all past this moment. Character data not found. That was the last thing I saw before I closed my eyes for what I thought was the final time. So when I open them again and I'm lying face down on cold stone that smells like horse and wood smoke, my first coherent thought is, this isn't how death is supposed to work. My second thought is that my cheek hurts. There's a small sharp pebble digging into it. I roll over. Gray sky above, boxed in by the peaked rooftops of buildings I've seen 10,000 times. The Timberframe Guild district of Asteria, capital of the kingdom, starting zone for every new player who ever made an Ethereum account. I know this street. I know the crooked chimney on the corner house. I know that if I walk 200 meters that way, I'll hit the central fountain where new players used to stand around spamming trade requests. But I've never smelled it before. That's the part that stops me. In the game there were no smells. There was no cold soaking up through my clothes, no ache in my lower back, no rawness in my throat like I've been screaming. There's a woman walking past with a basket of turnips and I can smell the earth still clinging to them, and I can hear her humming under her breath, and none of that is in the code. I wrote guides on this game. I dissected every system it had. There are no ambient scent particles. There is no procedural humming. I look down at my hands. They're not my hands. Well, they are now. They're pale, uncouth, soft. Not a laborer's hands. And I'm wearing the Ethereum default aristocrat starter set, dark blue coat with silver piping, high boots, a fitted collar. The clothes every account gets one of, back when they were free promotional gear before the devs made them premium. I know exactly whose body this is, because I know exactly what I'm wearing. And I say out loud, and my voice comes out cracked. Second. My backup character. The one I made years ago and never once logged into past the tutorial. Level 1. 0 playtime. A blank slate wearing expensive-looking clothes. I make my new fists open and close. The knuckles pop. That's real too. Okay. Let's be a scientist about this. I've theory-crafted my way out of harder problems than being dead. I get up. My legs shake, not weak, just unused, like they've never held weight before, which if this really is Knee's body, they haven't. I steady myself on a wall and the rough plaster scrapes my palm, and a bright pinprick of pain says the plaster is real too, and the palm is real, and I am apparently real. The obvious test first. I wave my hand in the empty air where a menu should be. Nothing. I do it again, slower, the exact gesture that opens the character sheet. I whisper the command words. I try to feel for the interface the way you feel for a light switch in the dark. There's nothing there. No health bar hovering at the edge of my vision. No minimap. No level indicator, no experience track, no inventory grid, no clock. I strain until my head throbs, and the throbbing itself answers the question. In the game, you couldn't get a headache from trying too hard to open a menu, because there was no hard. The interface just was. It's gone. All of it. The whole layer of numbers and windows that I lived inside for 7 years deleted, same as Itchy. I stand very still in the middle of this street that isn't a street, holding my scraped hand, and something cold that isn't the weather crawls up my spine. Let me be sure. Let me be really, really sure, because everything I decide next depends on it. There's a baker's shop across the way. Open front, a counter, loaves in baskets, a man in a flour-dusted apron. In the game, this was a vendor.
Acquesta bene NPC.
You clicked him, a dialog box popped up. He sold you bread for a fixed price and said one of 4 canned lines on a loop. I walk over. My mouth is dry thirst, another thing the game never gave me. You, the baker says, and he looks me up and down, and his eyes catch on my coat and go a little wary. That's already wrong. NPCs don't react to your gear. You lost, my lord. My lord. Right. The coat. I need to check something, I say. Bear with me. Before he can answer, I pick up a small knife off his counter, a bread knife. Dull, and before I can second guess it, I draw the edge across the pad of my own thumb. The pain is bright and immediate, and the baker shouts "Oi!" and grabs my wrist, and I let him, because I'm staring at the line of red welling up across my thumb. Blood. Actual blood, dark and slow. Are you mad? The baker says, still holding my wrist. What in the you remember me, I say. What? Yesterday. Do you remember yesterday? What did you do? He stares at me like I am mad, which is fair. But then cautiously, because I'm well-dressed and the well-dressed get answered, I baked. Same as every day. My daughter was sick with a fever, I sat up with her half the night, He stops himself. Why does a nobleman care what I did yesterday? My daughter was sick with a fever. No script has that line. No dialogue tree branches to a baker's daughter's fever. That's a life. That's a whole life that existed before I opened my eyes, running on its own, indifferent to me, complete. I let go of the knife. It clatters on the counter. I press my bleeding thumb against my coat, ruining the silver piping, and I don't care. Nothing, I tell him. I'm sorry. Here. I pat myself for a coin purse out of pure reflex, find one at my belt, don't even look at it, and just drop it on his counter. For the knife. For scaring you. Is your daughter better? He blinks. His anger drains into confusion. The fever broke this morning. Good. I say, and I mean it, which surprises me. That's good. I walk away before he can respond, and I make it around the corner before my legs stop holding me and I have to sit down against a wall and put my head between my knees. The NPCs are people. Not the devs improved the AI people. People. This baker had a sleepless night I never coded, over a daughter I never generated, and she got better through no input of mine. He bleeds. I bleed. There's no menu because there's no game. There's no log out button because there's nothing to log out of. I'm not playing Ethereum. I'm in it. And it was never a game to begin with, or it stopped being one the second I died in that other place and woke up here in flesh. I sit there and I do the math I don't want to do. No interface means no health bar. No health bar means no visible number ticking toward 0. Which means when I get hurt here, really hurt, I won't get a red flash and a warning. I'll just bleed until I stop, like anyone. Like the baker would. Death is real. If I die here, there's no respawn timer. There's no graveyard to run back from. I've already used up my one free death, back in the other world in a bathtub, and I am not going to get a second one. That thought should terrify me. And it does. But underneath the terror there's something else, something I'm almost ashamed to notice, and it's relief. Because in the other world I had nothing left to lose and I lost it anyway. I gave that whole life to a ranking table. I skipped meals, skipped sleep, skipped everything a person is supposed to have: friends, work, a family like the bakers, because I was number one and number one was who I was. And then a bored, jealous man with a keyboard reached in and deleted Itchy, deleted the only proof I'd ever existed, and the developers said we're sorry, recovery is impossible, and I understood in one clean horrible flash that I had built my entire self out of data that could be erased in an afternoon. So I erased the rest of it. And I woke up here. Broke. Level 1. Nobody. In a body I never bothered to name past a number. But I woke up. I lift my head. Down the street the fountain glitters where I know it will be. I press my thumb, the bleeding's already slowing, and I let myself, for one breath, feel the sun that's just now breaking through the gray warm on my face, and it's the first sun I've felt in longer than I can remember, because in the game there was no sun, and in that apartment I kept the curtains shut. Alive. Actually, physically alive. For the first time in years. I laugh, and it comes out ugly and wet, and a passing woman gives me a wide berth. Okay, Takumi. Enough. Take stock. That's what you're good at. You've been dropped into a hostile environment with unknown parameters, no, known parameters. That's the whole point. That's the only reason you're not already dead. I don't have the interface. But I have everything the interface used to tell me. 7 years and 4 months at the top of the leaderboard means I have every drop table, every monster weakness, every dungeon layout, every merchant price, every exploit and skill combo and quest chain and hidden mechanic in this entire world memorized. Asteria's guild law. The patrol routes of the city watch. Which alchemist undervalues moon thistle? What eats undead aggro and what breaks it? The rot marshes, 3 hours east of here, where a level 1 idiot with enough cheap potions can farm experience at a rate no one native to this world has ever imagined. Because no one native to this world thinks the way a game's top player thinks. Nobody else has this. Not the king. Not the princes. Not the archmages. In a whole world of living people, I am the one person who has read the strategy guide, because I wrote it. That's my build. Knowledge. It's the only thing I own, and it's worth more than a kingdom. I get to my feet. My legs are steadier now. I know where I'm going. First I need to see what's in this coin purse, because Ni's default starter stipend, if it's really here, is enough money that stay where you are. Boots. 4 sets, in step. I turn and there's a squad of them coming up the street city watch, but the good kind, the third-order knights in proper plate with the kingdom's crest, the ones you don't argue with. And leading them, sword already half-drawn, is a woman. Late 20s, maybe. Short dark hair cut for a helmet. A hard, level face and harder eyes, the kind that have already decided things about you before you open your mouth. Her gaze goes exactly where the baker's did to my coat, my boots, the silver piping, the 2 fine clothes on a man sitting broke and bleeding in the gutter. That's aristocrat's dress, she says. House colors I don't recognize on a man I've never seen at any court, sitting in the mud in the guild district with no retinue and no seal. She stops 3 paces off, close enough to strike, far enough to react. Either you've robbed a nobleman, or you're impersonating one. Both hang. Great. First hour back from the dead and I've triggered a detain event because of my starting gear. The one thing every guide warns you about: don't wear flashy stuff in a low-level zone, and I'm getting arrested by a mechanic I taught other people to avoid. I hold up my hands, slow, thumb still red. I can explain, but honestly you won't believe the first 3/4 of it. Then don't waste my time with those parts. She jerks her chin at her men. Bind him. Your name, I say, as they take my arms, because information is information and I intend to survive this. At least give me that. She looks at me a moment longer than she needs to. Something in how steadily I meet her eyes makes her pause. Most people, arrested, either grovel or rage. I do neither. I'm just filing her. Hataka, she says. Third-order knight. And you'll want to remember it, because I'm the one deciding whether you see a judge or a rope. They walk me down the street I know so well, past the baker who watches me go with his mouth open, and I don't fight it, because fighting it is not the play. The play is patience. The cell is stone and straw, and it smells worse than the street. They take my coin purse, my belt, everything, and leave me my ruined coat. The door is iron. There's a barred window too high to reach. I sit down on the straw and I put my back to the cold wall and I take inventory, the way I've taken inventory 10,000 times before a raid, except this time the numbers aren't on a screen. They're in my head, and they're all I have. Assets. 1. Complete metagame knowledge of the world I'm now trapped in. Total mastery of a strategy guide only I possess. Liabilities. Everything else. No money, they've got it. No skills trained.
No allies.
A level 1 body that's never thrown a punch. A jailer who wants to hang me. A world where death is permanent, and I've already spent my extra life. I should be despairing. In the other world, a locked room and no way out was, more or less, how I ended it. But I'm turning the bread knife pain over in my mind, the blood, the baker's daughter's fever, the sun on my face, and I find I'm not despairing at all.
I'm calculating.
Because a locked cell is a puzzle, and puzzles have solutions, and I have never in my life met a puzzle in this world I couldn't solve. Somewhere out there is a woman named Ataka who thinks I'm a thief or a fraud, and who's going to interrogate me, and who has no idea that the vagrant she just locked up knows the exact patrol schedule of her own watch, the true price of every stolen good in her city, the weakness of every monster prowling her kingdom's borders. She's holding all the cards, and she doesn't know I can see the backs of them. I flex my scraped thumb. The cut's closed. My body heals like anyone's now slow, real mine. Number 1, I think. Once. In a world that could delete me with a line of red text. I look up at the barred window, at the strip of Rayal sky going gold with evening, and for the first time in longer than I can count, I want something that isn't a rank. I want to be number 1 here. Where the number means you're still breathing. Where the people who know your name know your face. Where you can't be erased in an afternoon by a man with a keyboard, because there is no keyboard, there's only flesh and blood and the long hard work of mattering to someone. I settle back against the wall to wait for Hataka. I've got the only thing I'll ever need. And I've got all the time in the world, because for once, I actually intend to use it. They leave me in the cell overnight, And I learned something the game never taught me: hunger. Not the little status effect debuff that ticked your stats down by 5%. Real hunger, the kind that hollows you out and makes your hands shake by morning, because Nee's body has apparently never eaten anything, and I skipped whatever passes for supper in a holding cell. There's a wooden cup of water somebody shoved through the slot in the door. I drink all of it. I'd have paid a fortune for more. When the door finally opens, it's Hataka, and she's carrying a bowl. She sets it down on the floor just inside the bar's porridge, gray and thin, a wooden spoon standing up in it, and steps back to watch me eat. She wants to see how I do it. A real aristocrat eats one way. A thief who stole an aristocrat's coat eats another. I'm too hungry to perform, so I just eat, fast and without ceremony, and I catch the faint flicker in her eyes when I don't do it right. 1 point against the noble theory. Good. Let her keep her theory unstable. An interrogator who's sure of you asks fewer questions, and I need her asking questions, because questions are how I get to talk. Start with the coat, she says, when the bowl's empty. She's sitting on a stool she brought, sword across her knees, all business. Whose is it?
Mine.
I know how that sounds. You have no seal. No house records match those colors. No court in the capital has heard of you. She ticks it off flat. So it's stolen, and you'll tell me from whom, and if the man's still alive I might spare you the rope. It's not stolen, and there's no house because I'm not from any house. I lean forward. Here's the play: you can't tell an interrogator the truth when the truth is I died in another world and woke up in a body I made for a game. But you can give her something she can verify, because verification is trust you don't have to ask for. You think I'm a fraud pretending to know things a noble knows. I'll do the opposite. Ask me things a vagrant couldn't know. Things you can check. If I'm just a thief in a good coat, I'll fail, and you hang me. If I'm not, you've got a very strange fish, and you'll want to know why. She studies me. She's smart. I can see her weighing whether this is a con. But she's also curious, and curiosity is the crack you get your fingers into. Fine, she says. The rot marshes, east of the city. What's out there? Softball. She thinks it's obscure. Undead. Bog-drowned, mostly old dead risen from the peat, plus mire crawlers in the deeper water. Nothing above them in strength, but there's no end to them, which is why no sane party farms their long. The reward per kill's too low to justify the risk of getting swarmed. I keep going before she can react. But that's not a fair test, half the guild knows that. Ask me something you know the answer to and think I can't. Her jaw tightens a fraction. The East Gate Watch. Their rotation. Third Order squads, 4 to a patrol, rotate at the bell dawn, midday, dusk, midnight. The dusk shift's a man light 3 days out of 7 because you're short-staffed since the spring levy and you've been covering it by pulling from the market beat. I watch that land. I'm guessing at the levy part. The rotation I'm sure of. She goes very still. That's not public knowledge. That's watch internal, the kind of thing you'd only know from inside, which is exactly why I picked it, because I need her to feel the floor move. In the game, the East Gate rotation was a hard-coded patrol schedule I'd memorized for a stealth quest chain years ago. Here it's apparently true, which tells me something enormous. The world's underlying rules are the game's rules. The map is the map. The systems are the systems. Everything I know still holds. How, Hataka says. It's not really a question. It's a warning. If I tell you the real answer, you'll be certain I'm mad, and then you won't listen to anything else. I spread my hands. So let me give you the useful version instead. I know things about this kingdom that no thief and no vagrant could. I don't know them because I spied, and I don't know them because I'm a noble. I know them because where I'm from, knowing them was my entire life. That's the whole of it. I'm the most well-informed man you will ever arrest, and I'd be a great deal more useful to you outside this cell than in it. Convenient. Test me more, then. Guild law, you're a knight, but you enforce it. A first-time adventurer registers with the guild and takes a contract above their rank. It fails. The party dies except him. Under the Charter of Kalen, what happens to him? Her eyes narrow. She knows this one, it's her job. He's liable for the death price of each fallen member unless the contract was misgraded by the guild's own assessor, in which case liability transfers to the guild, per the Third Amendment to the Charter, and the survivors owed compensation instead. Most people never claim it because they don't know it's there. I sit back. I know the parts of your own law that your own guild hopes you'll forget. Ask yourself what kind of thief studies the Third Amendment to the Charter of Kalen. For a long moment she says nothing. Then she stands, picks up the empty bowl, and looks down at me with an expression I can't quite read. Not trust, not yet, but the specific frustration of a careful person who can no longer make the simple explanation fit. You're not a noble, she says. And I don't think you're a common thief. Which means you're something I don't have a name for, and I don't like things I can't name walking my city. She turns for the door. I'm not hanging you today. Don't mistake that for freedom. Wait. I get up too fast, and my empty stomach lurches. My coin purse. When you took me, there was a purse at my belt. I need to know what's in it. She pauses at the door. It's held with your effects. How much? She actually almost smiles, and it's not a kind smile. More than a man sitting in this cell has any right to. That's another reason you're still here. She lets me out 2 days later. Not free, released into her custody, which she makes very clear is a leash and not a gift. You leave the city, I hunt you. You break a law, I'm the one who takes you down. And until I decide what you are, you don't leave my sight for long. She hands me my belt and my ruined coat and last, the purse. I open it the second I'm out the door, in the alley beside the watch house, and I have to lean against the wall. I knew Nee's account had the starter stipend. Every account did the promotional grant they gave out with the free aristocrat set, back at launch, before they monetized it. In the game it was a trivial amount, enough to buy your first pot of low-level potions and be gone by level 5. Here it's a fortune. The economies map onto each other, but the people don't. In the game every player started with this money, so it was worthless, everyone had it. Here, I'm not one of 10,000 players. I'm one man, and this is the savings of a wealthy household, sitting in a purse at the belt of a level 1 nobody, because the system that generated my starting gear doesn't know it dropped me into a world where ordinary people go their whole lives without seeing this much coin. The starter grant in the game was a number on a screen. Here it became what everything here became: flesh and metal, real coins in a real purse, weighed down with the same reality as the cobbles under my boots. I have capital. Real capital, in a world where I'm the only one who knows exactly how to spend it. I close the purse and tuck it deep inside my coat, and I feel, for the first time since I woke up, a genuine thrill of the old thing, the edge. The feeling of holding an exploit nobody else has spotted. Which is exactly when the thug steps into the alley behind me. Nice coat, he says. Big man, scarred, a knife held low and easy, the posture of someone who's done this before. He must have followed me from the watch house. A man walking out of custody clutching a purse to his chest, I might as well have rung a bell. And here is where I make my first real, stupid, nearly fatal mistake, and I make it because 7 years of muscle memory betray me. In the game, I was untouchable. I had reaction times honed on 1,000 raid bosses, combos I could execute in my sleep, a body that did exactly what my mind told it to do at the speed of thought. So when the thug lunges, my mind knows precisely what to do: sidestep left, catch the wrist, roll the knife out of his grip, 3 moves, I've done it 10,000 times. My body does none of it. Nee's body has never fought anyone. My sidestep is a half-second too slow and a foot too short. My hand grabs for his wrist and closes on air. And the knife, which I knew was coming, which I saw coming, still catches me a hot line of fire across my ribs as I twist away too late, and then his shoulder hits my chest and I go down hard on the alley cobbles with all the air knocked out of me. The pain is unbelievable. Not a health bar dropping. A wound. My hand comes away from my side wet and red, and there's a lot of it, and my thoughts scatter into pure animal panic. I'm going to die here. First day out, over a purse. This is real. This is real. He drops onto me, knee on my chest, reaching for the coat, and some cold part of me that never panics, the part that theorycrafts takes over because the rest of me can't. You can't outfight him. Your body can't. So don't fight. Solve it. His weight is on my chest, both his hands busy tearing at my coat for the purse. His knife hand is committed. Behind me, an arm's length away, I can feel at the edge of the cobbles, a broken one, a jagged loose stone I landed next to. I stop grabbing for his arms. I grab the stone. And I don't try to be a fighter. I do the one thing a level 1 body can do with a rock. I swing it with everything I have wildly, at the side of his head, no technique, no grace, just terror and mass and a jagged edge. It connects with a sound I'll hear in my sleep, and he grunts and reels sideways, and his knee comes off my chest, and I heave him off and scramble backward on my hands, and then I'm up and running, one hand clamped over the fire in my side, purse still inside my coat. I make it 2 streets before I have to stop and vomit up thin gray porridge into a gutter. Hataka finds me an hour later, which tells me the leash is real. She was closer than I thought. She takes one look at the blood soaking my side and the way I'm sitting slumped against a wall going gray, and she doesn't lecture. She hauls me up, gets me to a healer, an actual person, an old woman with clean water and a needle and thread and a foul-smelling salve, and I get to experience the entirely new agony of being stitched shut while conscious. Shallow, the healer pronounces, unimpressed, tying off the last stitch. Cut a rib length but not deep. You'll keep. Drink, eat, sleep. Don't tear it. When she's gone, Hataka stands over me with her arms folded. You know the East Gate rotation and the Third Amendment to the Charter of Kalen. She says, and you can't fight off one street tough with a knife. I noticed that too, I say. My voice is a rasp. How does a man carry so much in his head and so little in his hands? It's a good question. It's the question, actually the exact gap I have to close if I'm going to survive this world, because I've just learned the most important lesson available to me, and it only cost me a rib length of skin and most of my dignity. Theory isn't muscle. I know every mechanic in this world by heart. I know the optimal build, the perfect rotation, the exploit no one's found. And none of it means a thing if my body can't execute it and I've got no one at my back. Knowledge alone doesn't win here. Knowledge plus the strength to use it does. And right now I have the first and none of the second. So I need to get strong fast, faster than any native ever could, and I know exactly how because I wrote the guide on it. And I need people. I can't do this as a solo build. That's over. I nearly died in an alley to a man with a knife. I am not clearing this kingdom alone. Which means I start with the one person who's already following me around whether I like it or not. Hataka, I say. You want to know what I am. I'll give you the best answer I can. I'm a man with a way to become very strong very quickly, and I can prove it, and I need someone I trust to watch my back while I do it. You don't trust me. Fine. But you don't want me out of your sight either. So come with me and watch. Escort me to the rot marshes. She stares at me. The marshes. Where a man farms undead until they swarm him and drown him in the peat. That's your proof you're not mad. I'm not going to fight them the way a sane person would. I say, and despite the stitches, despite the porridge in the gutter, despite everything, I feel the old grin coming back, the one I used to wear right before I broke a boss no one else could. I'm going to fight them a way no one in this whole kingdom has ever thought of. All I need is a full night, a great deal of my money, and one very skeptical knight standing next to me to confirm I'm doing exactly what I say I'm doing. She's quiet a long moment. Then, against what I can see is her better judgment, she says, "Show me." Not yet. I add, pressing a hand to the fresh stitches, the fire in my side flaring at the movement. This has to close first. A wound a rib-length long tears open at the first hard twist, and where we're going there's nothing but hard twists. Give it the better part of a week. Then I'll show you something you'll spend the rest of your life not quite believing. Before we go anywhere, I spend nearly everything I have on cheap medicine, but not right away, because the rib-length cut in my side has to close first. The wound takes the better part of a week to knit enough that I dare to move on it. Fresh stitches would tear open on the first hard twist, and where I'm going there's nothing but hard twists, so I wait, and I heal and I plan, and only when the healer prods the closed line and grunts that it'll hold do I go and turn everything I own into potions. The alchemist shop near the East Gate has a whole back shelf of what they call minor drafts, small clay vials of the weakest healing potion the guild recognizes. Thin, bitter stuff, brewed from moon thistle and riverroot, sold in bulk to poor adventurers who can't afford anything better. Each one closes small wounds and dulls fatigue for a little while. Each one costs almost nothing. I buy them by the crate. How many? The alchemist keeps asking, sure he's misheard, and I keep answering, and he keeps his face professionally blank the way a man does when a lunatic is making him rich. When I'm done, I've handed over almost the entire starter stipend, the household fortune, the edge, all of it, and in return I've got 4 crates of minor drafts, 30 vials to a crate, plus a bandolier of soft leather loops the alchemist's boy sews to my order so I can carry 24 at my hip and reach them without looking. Hataka watches the money leave my hands with the expression of a woman watching a man set his own house on fire. You just spent a fortune on the worst potions in the city, she says. Yes. On purpose. Yes. I sling the first crate onto the little handcart I've also bought. The worst potions are the point. She doesn't understand yet. That's fine. She will. The rot marshes are 3 hours east on the old Drovers Road, and my healed-over side still complains at every step, but the stitches hold, because I gave them the week they needed. We reach the edge of the bog as the sun's going down, which is exactly when I want to arrive, because the bog drown don't rise properly until dark. Standing at the tree line looking out over the peat and the black standing water and the reeds, I feel the strangest thing, recognition, and no recognition at all. I have stood on this exact spot 100 times. But it never smelled of rot and cold water and old death, and my breath never fogged in front of me, and my heart never pounded like this. In the game, the marsh was a low-level grind zone I mocked in guides as a beginner trap. I never wrote that it was beautiful, in a bleak way, with the last light red on the water. I never wrote that it was terrifying. Here's what you need to understand, I tell Hataka, because she deserves to know exactly what she's watching before I do something that looks like suicide. The bog drowned are weak. One at a time, a child could put one down. But they never come one at a time, and they never stop, and they never tire, and a normal fighter who wades and gets slowly surrounded and worn down until his arms give out and they pull him under. Yes. Every guild recruit knows that. It's why nobody farms here. Right. Because everyone thinks the problem is killing them. It isn't. Killing them is trivial. The problem is surviving long enough to keep killing them. I unbuckle the bandolier and check the loops, 24 vials, snug and ready. Nobody native to this world has ever asked the real question, which is, what if surviving stopped being the limit? What if I could take their hits forever? She's frowning. No one can take hits forever. A man with 120 potions can. I say, if each one costs less than the experience he gains between drinking them. I say it out loud partly for her and partly for myself, because this is the exploit, laid bare, and hearing it makes it real. The bog drowned hit soft. One blow is a scrape. But that's not where the danger is, and understanding why is the whole trick. A single hit is nothing bruising, a shallow scrape. But 40 scrapes a minute, from a horde that's closed on me from every side at once, that's blood loss, that's a man wearing down to nothing without a single serious wound. The draft doesn't heal one hit. It heals the accumulation, it resets the whole slow tide of it before it can add up to death. That's the loop. That's why I have to drink so often even though nothing they do to me is deep. It's not the wound. It's the pile of them. No native does this because no native thinks of a life as a resource you can stockpile in advance. They see potions as emergency insurance, 1 or 2 for a bad day. I see them as ammunition against attrition itself. You'll bankrupt yourself. Hataka says, and there's something in her voice now that isn't just skepticism. Even if it works. You've spent everything on those crates. What do you gain? Strength, I say. The one thing I've got none of. Watch. And I wade in. The first bog drown comes out of the reeds at me the moment my boots break the water, a bloated gray thing, peat black and slow, reaching with fingers that have been underwater for a decade. In the game it was a texture and a number. Here it reeks, and the reek nearly makes me lose my nerve entirely. I put my borrowed short sword through its skull. It's the guild issue blade Hataka lent me, and I use it the only way I can, no technique, just a straight thrust into a slow dumb target. It drops back into the water. And I feel something. Not a chime. Not a numbers go up window. But a warmth low in my spine, faint but unmistakable, the same thing I felt when I killed and leveled 10,000 times before. Except now it's a sensation in a body instead of a bar on a screen. Experience. Real here, flowing into me. The second one comes. The third. I kill them the same graceless way, 1 thrust each, and by the 5th 2 more have joined, and then more behind them, and the raking blows come from 3 sides at once now, each one thin and stinging and nothing, and that's exactly the point, nothing, times 40, adding up. I drink. The draft is bitter and cold going down, and the whole low tide of scrapes and bruising fades back to nothing at once. I don't stop moving. Drink, thrust, because the horde never thins, so the accumulation never stops, so the drafts never stop. By the end of the first hour I've lost count of the kills and I'm down 11 vials and I can feel the change in Nee's body the way you feel a limb wake up. The thrusts come faster. My footing in the sucking peat gets surer. The warmth in my spine has stopped being faint. Whatever a level is here, I am gaining them in a single night at a rate that took normal parties weeks, because normal parties fight one careful, limited fight and go home. I'm not fighting a limited fight. I've turned an endless enemy against itself. On the shore, Hataka has stopped looking skeptical. That's not possible, she says later, when I wade out for water and to check my stitches, which have held. She's standing where the firelight from her small blaze reaches the water's edge, and she's watching the churning mass of undead I've left behind like she's never seen the marsh before, which in a sense she hasn't. A night ago you couldn't fight off one man in an alley. Now you're standing in the middle of a horde and they can't touch you. They can touch me, I say, drinking real water this time, water I brought in a skin, because a man can't fight all night without actual water and I'm not fool enough to drink bog. They just can't wear me down faster than I can undo it. Each one of them's nothing. All of them together should be death by 1,000 cuts. I'm just paying off the 1,000 cuts 30 vials at a time. That's the whole trick. How did you know this would work? Because I've done it before, in a world made of numbers, and the numbers are the same here. But I can't say that. Because I asked a question nobody else asks, I say instead, which is true. Everyone here treats a fight as a thing you win or lose. I treat it as a system you can measure. Cost per kill. Reward per kill. If reward beats cost, you don't stop ever, no matter how it looks from the outside. It looks insane. It's just arithmetic. She's quiet. Then, you're rebuilding your body. I'm rebuilding my body, I agree. Down to my last crate now I count 60-odd vials gone, more than half, but the trade is exactly what I calculated. Money for strength. And money I can make again. The strength is the thing I couldn't buy any other way. One night here is worth a month of anything else. By dawn I'll be able to survive a man with a knife. That's all I want out of tonight. Just enough not to die stupidly. I go back in. The trouble arrives around midnight, and it isn't undead. For figures on the far shore, torches, the loose swagger of an adventuring party that thinks it owns a place. I clock them the way I clock everything now, a team, mid-tier by their gear, the kind that patrols a farm zone shaking down anyone weaker. Their leader, a broad man with an axe, cups his hands. Marsh is spoken for. He shouts. This is the Ashfin party's ground. You want to farm here, you pay the toll, or you clear off. I keep killing. It's public land, I call back, thrusting a bogdround off my blade. Guild Charter, Section on Unclaimed Wilds. No party can toll a public grind zone. You know that. You just hope I don't. That was a mistake, not the law, the tone. I've embarrassed the man in front of his people. The axe leader's face darkens and he steps into the water. Then we'll just take those crates off you, city boy, and you can drown. 4 of them. Armed. My body's stronger than it was, but I'm still no match for a real party in a straight fight, and Hataka's a third-order knight. She could probably take all 4, but she's standing on the shore with her arms folded, and I understand instantly that this is my test. She wants to see it. She'll step in if I'm dying. Not before. Fine. So I don't fight them. I fight the marsh. I've been standing in the shallows near the shore this whole time, the safe edge, where I can retreat to dry ground. The deep water, the black standing pools out past the reeds, that's where the true swarm is, where the bog-drowned pack thick under the surface and the footing drops away into peat that'll swallow a man to the waist. I've spent all night reading exactly where those pools sit, because I had to avoid them. I have the whole underwater map in my head the way I once had it on a screen. The Ashfin party doesn't. Come and get them, then. I call and I back away, not toward shore, but sideways, drawing them along the water's edge, waiting like I'm scared and clumsy, letting the axe leader think he's hurting me. He grins and comes on, splashing after me with his 3 at his back, and they're watching me, only me, the way angry men do, so none of them are reading the water. I lead them straight along the lip of the deep pool. I know where it drops. I take the last step onto the firm hidden ridge of peat I found an hour ago, a spine of solid ground running through the black water, the only safe line across. I've walked it a dozen times tonight. I step onto it and turn and stand. The axe leader takes one more step to follow me, and the bottom isn't there. He goes down to the chest into sucking peat and standing water, roaring, and the man behind him plunges after him because he was too close and too committed, and the black water moves because the deep pool is where the swarm has been gathering all night toward the only warm living things for a mile, and now there are 4 floundering, splashing, panicking meals thrashing right in the middle of them. Bloated gray hands come up out of the water on every side. The axe leader's roar turns into something else. They don't die. I don't want them dead, I want them out. I've counted the swarm's speed all night, and I know the bog-drowned are slow, and I know 4 armed adventurers, even panicking, even mired, will fight free before they're pulled under. It'll cost them their pride and their footing and a great deal of terror, but not their lives. That's the calculation. Just enough. The ridge. I shout, because I'm not a murderer, and I point at the safe spine of peat they can't see. Follow my voice, there's solid ground on your right, move. They flounder toward the ridge, hauling each other, shedding weapons, wet and gray-faced and clawing at grasping dead hands, and they drag themselves up onto the firm ground half a dozen paces from me, and they don't attack. They can't. They're spent, terrified, one of them weeping, all 4 staring at the churning water. They nearly died in water I walked through all night like it was nothing. Public land, I say quietly. Section on unclaimed wilds. Tell the other parties. They run. Splashing, stumbling, throwing looks back at me like I'm something out of the marsh myself. I never swung at them once. Hataka is standing very still on the shore. By dawn the last crate's empty, and so am my money gone, potions gone, legs like water, the good exhaustion of a body that's been remade in a single night. My stitched side aches but hasn't torn. I've eaten the bread and cheese I brought, drunk the last of my water, and I sit down heavily on dry ground next to Hataka's dead fire as the sun comes up red over the reeds, and I feel strong in a way I never once felt in 7 years at the top of a leaderboard, because that strength was a number and this is in my arms. Hataka sits down across from me. For a long time she doesn't say anything. You spent your whole fortune, she finally says. You're as broke now as when I first arrested you. Broker. I owe the alchemist for the bandolier. And you'd do it again. Tonight, if I could afford it. I look at my hand still soft, but the tremor's gone. Money comes back. What I bought with it doesn't come any other way. She's studying me the way she did in the cell, but it's different now. Something has settled behind her eyes. I came out here certain you were a fraud, she says. A man who talks. I've watched a level 1 nobody out-earn a season of veteran work in one night, and drive off an armed party without drawing blood, using nothing but law and terrain and a bottle full of the cheapest medicine in the city. She shakes her head slowly. I still don't know what you are. But I don't think you're lying about being useful. And I don't think I can walk away and let someone else figure out what you can do first. It's not trust. Not yet. But it's a knight, a real one, choosing to stay near me because she'd rather have me at her side than at anyone else's, and that, I'm learning, is worth more than any exploit. There's a problem, I say, because there always is, and because I've been thinking about it all night between kills. Word's going to travel. For men just ran home telling everyone about the impossible mage in the rot marshes. That story spreads. And I'm broke and one man, and the next people who come looking won't be a shakedown party I can lead into a bog. Hataka almost smiles. So what does the man with the whole kingdom in his head do about that? I get to my feet, slow, aching, and I look east toward the city where a rumor about me is already starting to move through the streets like water through peat. He stops being one man, I say. He builds a team. A team costs money, and I have none, so before I recruit anyone I go back to the marsh 3 more nights and do the exact same thing on credit. The alchemist fronts me the potions. Now he saw the coin I spent the first time and he's seen the rumor spreading, and he'd rather lend to the impossible marsh mage than lose him to a competitor. So I farm, I sell what the bog-drowned leave behind old drowned coin, corroded rings, the small salvage a decade of debt accumulate, and by the end of the week I've paid him back and cleared a modest profit, and more importantly, I've kept leveling. During the day I slept in the city, and at night I went back to the bog because the undead only rise in the dark, which suited me fine, since it meant my days were free to rest a body that had been remade all in one night and couldn't be run to death besides. My body's not a swordsman's yet, but it's a body that can now win the alley fight it lost, and that's the floor I needed. Then I go looking for people. The trouble with recruiting is that I know the systems of this world perfectly and the people not at all. In the game, companions were units you assessed their stats, their skills, their build, and you slotted them into your party. I catch myself doing exactly that in the guild hall, standing at the contract board reading adventurers like character sheets, and I have to stop, because a man who nearly died in an alley from thinking his body was a stat block should know better by now. These aren't units. They're the baker's daughter's fever, multiplied. Everyone here is a whole life. Which is how I end up not choosing my first companion at all. She chooses the moment, and I just happen to be standing in it. It's in the market, near the scales house where the produce and small salvage get weighed and bought. There's a commotion, raised voices, and a crowd doing the thing crowds do, which is watch and not help. A beast folk girl is arguing with a merchant. She's maybe 20, wiry and quick, with a tail lashing behind her and fox-red ears flat against her skull with anger, dressed in a fighter's worn leathers. She's got a sack of marsh salvage on the merchant's counter, the same kind I sell, drowned coin and corroded metal, and the merchant, a fat prosperous man with rings, is shaking his head and pointing at his scale. 2 silver, he's saying. That's the weight. That's the price. Take it or drag it home, beast girl. That's half what you paid the human ahead of me for the same sack. Her voice cracks, not from weakness, from fury held back so hard it hurts. I watched him. Same weight, same goods, twice the coin. You're cheating me, because she stops herself, jaw tight, because they both know how the sentence ends and saying it out loud won't help. The crowd murmurs and doesn't move. A couple of them are smirking. One says something low about knowing their place, and there's ugly laughter, and the girl's ears flatten further and her hands curl into fists, and I can see exactly what's about to happen. She's going to hit him, and then it won't be a cheating merchant story anymore, it'll be a beast folk assaulted a citizen story, and she'll hang or worse, and the merchant knows it too, which is why he's smiling. He's not just cheating her. He's baiting her. I've been standing at the back of the crowd. Hataka is beside me, and I feel her tense to step in the way a knight does, but stepping in as a knight just makes it a legal matter, her word against his, and his scale reads what it reads. That won't clear the girl. That'll just make it official. So I don't let it become a knight's problem. I make it a mechanic problem, because mechanics I can win. Weigh it again, I say, loud enough to cut through, and I walk to the front. The merchant looks at me, takes in the coat, repaired now, but still fine, and his smile shifts to the careful blandness men wear for nobles. My lord? There's no dispute. The scale's the scale. Then weigh it again. The whole sack. Now, in front of everyone. I lean on the counter. And this time I'll be watching your left hand instead of the pan. His smile doesn't move, but something behind his eyes does. Here's what I know, because I wrote 3,000 words on market mechanics in a guide once. The scales house merchants who cheat don't tamper with the weights, because weights get inspected. They cheat with the pan. The buying pan of a rigged scale has a false bottom or a hidden catch-a-lever under the counter's lip the merchant thumbs while the goods settle, that lets the pan ride a fraction high, so it reads light. It's undetectable unless you know to look under the counter, and nobody looks under the counter, because everyone's watching the needle. I saw his hand drop below the lip when the girl's sack went on. He did it out of habit, the way he does it 40 times a day. There's a catch under the front edge of your counter, I say, conversational, to the whole crowd now. Left side, where your thumb rests. When the beast folks' goods went on, you pressed it, and the pan rode high, and it read light. Do you deny it? That's a slanderous, then you'll let a knight of the third order check under your counter. I don't look away from him. She's standing right there. She can put her hand on it in 2 seconds. If there's nothing there, you weigh light on me and I apologize in front of everyone and pay you damages for the insult. If there is something there, I let it hang. The merchant's face goes from bland to gray. Because he can't say no. Refusing a noble's demand and a knight's inspection is as good as confessing, in front of a market full of witnesses and other merchants who'd love his stall. Hataka is already moving. She reaches under the counter's front lip, feels along it, and I watch her fingers find something and go still. She looks up at me, then at the merchant, and her expression is thunderous. There's a lever, she says flatly to the crowd. Under his counter. It's rigged. The market noise changes completely. It goes about how these things go once the crowd turns. The merchant's protests drown under the anger of everyone who ever left his stall feeling short, which turns out to be most of the market. Hataka takes him in rigged scales as a real crime with real teeth under the very charter I quoted in a jail cell a week ago, and the girl gets her fair price. 2 silver becomes 4, weighed on a borrowed honest scale in front of witnesses. She stands there holding 4 silver in her palm, staring at it, and then at me, and her ears have come up, and her whole face is changed, the fury gone, replaced by something rawer that she's clearly not used to showing. Why, she says. Because he was cheating you and it was easy to prove. I shrug. And because he was trying to make you hit him. He wanted it. You almost gave it to him. I know. Her tail lashes once, ashamed. I always almost give it to them. That's the thing about being what I am. Everybody's waiting for you to prove them right. She closes her fist around the silver. You're the marsh mage. The one who beat the Ashvin boys without swinging. Everybody's talking about you. Takumi, I say. It's the first time I've given anyone my real name since I got here, and it feels strange in my mouth, both true and a lie, a name from a world that no longer exists worn by a man in a world that shouldn't. An I, on the guild rolls. Marshmage is a bit much. Rena, she says. Then fast, before she can lose her nerve, all in a rush, you need people. That's what they say. The Marshmage is putting together a team. I'm good, I'm fast, I'm strong, I've done real contracts, I don't run. I never run and nobody'll take me because I'm beast folk, and I don't want a handout. I'll earn my place. I'll earn every day of it, just. She stops, out of breath, ears trembling with the effort of asking for something she's clearly been refused 100 times. Just give me the chance to earn it. I look at her. The old part of my brain, the unit assessor, notes, fast, strong, close combat, high morale, loyalty likely off the charts given her situation. A good pick. The rest of me, the part that's been learning what a life is, here's a person who spent her whole existence being told to know her place, asking a stranger for the one thing nobody's ever given her a place worth having. You've got it, I say. But not as a handout, and not on trial. You're on the team. Full share, same as anyone. First one who suggests otherwise answers to me and to her. I nod at Hataka, coming back from handing the merchant off, and she's a lot scarier than I am. Rena's mouth opens. Her eyes go bright, and she blinks hard and looks at the ground and says, okay, in a very small voice, and then she looks up grinning like the sun coming over the reeds and says, okay. Much louder, and I understand I've just made someone's entire week, maybe their whole year, by treating a rigged scale as a puzzle. It's a strange, warm, unfamiliar feeling. I decide I like it. Hataka arrives, glances between us, and sighs. You collect strays. I'm building a team, I correct. Strategically. You have a swordless swordsman, a knight who arrested him, and a beast-folk brawler nobody else would hire. She says it dry, but there's the ghost of something almost like fondness under it. Very strategic. You'd be surprised how far underestimated works in my favor. I say, and I mean it, because everything I've done since I woke up has run on people expecting less of me than I can deliver. Rena, it turns out, comes with a connection, and it's the one I actually need. Over food that evening, real food, a proper meal at a tavern I can now afford, which is its own small miracle for a body that knew nothing but jail porridge a week ago. Rena talks. She talks a great deal, it pours out of her, the relief of being at a table where nobody's waiting for her to fail. And in among the talk she mentions, casually, that she knows a summoner. Kaori, she says, around a mouthful. She's the only other person who ever treated me straight. She's quiet. Really quiet. She summons spirits, real ones, big ones, or she's supposed to. There's some spirit tied to her family, been passed down forever, huge and old and important, and she can't. Rena hesitates, protective. Something's wrong between her and it. She won't say what. But the summoning breaks every time and it's eating her alive. She thinks it's her fault. She's the best summoner in the city and she thinks she's the worst because of this one thing she can't fix. I put my cup down slowly. I know exactly what a fractured bond with a great bound spirit is, because it's a system, and I know the system, and I know that a summoner who can't complete a contract with a spirit tied to their bloodline is sitting on one of the most powerful assets in this entire world and doesn't know how to unlock it. In the game, that was a quest chain, a legendary one. The kind that gated a top-tier ally behind a puzzle almost nobody solved, because almost nobody understood the contract mechanics. I understand the contract mechanics. I'd like to meet her, I say, and I keep my voice level, But Hataka catches the change in me anyway. She started to read me. Careful, she says quietly. You've got a look. What look? The one you had at the counter. Right before the merchant realized he'd already lost. Rena glances between us, uncertain, and I make myself set the calculation aside for a second and remember what I actually decided, sitting in a cell a week ago. Not units. People. I don't want your friend as an asset, Rena, I say, and it's mostly true, and I intend to make the rest of it true. If she's carrying something that's eating her alive, and I know how to help, then I want to help. If a big spirit comes out of it, good, we could use one. But the person comes first. That's the deal on this team. Every time. You included. Rena studies me for a long moment, ears tilted, and whatever she's looking for she seems to find, because she nods, satisfied, and goes back to her food. She'll like you, she decides. Or she'll hate you. She does one or the other really fast. There's no in-between with Kaori. Fantastic, says Hataka. Later, walking back through streets that no longer feel entirely strange, I take my own inventory the way I always do, except tonight the list isn't potions and coin. A knight who chose to stay near me instead of anyone else. A beast folk brawler who'll walk through fire because I treated a rigged scale as an insult worth answering. And tomorrow, a broken summoner sitting on a legendary bond she can't complete and a puzzle only I know how to solve. A week ago I woke up broke and level 1 in a body I'd never named, in a world that had stopped being a game, and I sat in a cell and decided I'd be number 1 here the way I was there. But number 1 they're meant a name on a table, alone at the top, a rank I bled my whole life to hold and lost in an afternoon. Number 1 here, I'm starting to suspect, is going to mean something I never learned in 7 years of playing to win. I glance at Rena, chattering to a long-suffering Hataka about the best way to skin a marsh crawler, both of them lit gold by a tavern window, both of them improbably, mine now not as units, as people who chose to be here. I don't say any of that out loud. It'd ruin the mood. Instead I think about spirit contract mechanics, and I let myself smile, because tomorrow I'm going to help a stranger fix the thing that's breaking her, and if I do it right the whole kingdom's about to get a great deal more interesting. Kaori lives in the Summoner's Quarter, in a narrow house that smells of old incense and older paper, and the first thing she says to me is, no. She says it before I've finished stepping through the door. She's exactly as Rena described, small, still, dark-haired, with a kind of quiet that isn't shyness but control, a person holding something heavy so carefully that stillness is the only way to carry it. Her eyes go over me once, fast, the way Hataka's did in the street, except where Hataka was reading a threat, Kaori is reading a disappointment before it arrives. You're the marsh mage, she says. Rena thinks you can fix my summoning. You can't. Better summoners than you have tried and it broke them too. So no. I won't waste your time and you won't waste mine. She's already turning back to the array chalked on her floor, a complex thing of interlocking circles and script. Rena, I love you, but you shouldn't have brought him. Kaori. Rena starts. What broke last time? I ask. Kaori stops. The summons, I say into her silence. You've done it, what, a dozen times? More? It always fails at the same point. I guess right at the end the spirit manifests, you feel it, and then the bond won't close. It slips. Like reaching for something that pulls back the instant you touch it. I watch her shoulders go rigid. And everyone's told you it's a flaw in you. Your will's not strong enough, your line's blood is thinning, you're not worthy of the spirit your ancestors bound. Yes. She turns around slowly. Her control has cracked, just slightly, at the corners. How do you know that? Because it's not you, I say. It was never you. It's the terms. I crouch by her array without asking, and I read it, and it's beautiful work, precise, powerful, everything correct. Which is the problem, because correct isn't the same as right, and I know the difference the way I know everything here, because I once spent a full month of my old life documenting exactly this, the legendary bloodline spirit contract that 99 summoners out of 100 failed and blamed themselves for. Whoever bound your family's spirit, generations back, wrote a contract of submission, I say. The spirit serves the summoner. That's how almost every contract works. You're the master, it's the servant, you compel it and it obeys. And for small spirits, weak ones, that's fine, they don't have enough pride to object. But your spirit isn't small. I look up at her. It's a great spirit ruler. And you're trying to command something that has ruled longer than your entire bloodline has existed. Every time you reach the final bond, it feels the shape of the term servitude and it refuses. Not because you're weak. Because you're insulting it, and it would rather break the summoning 1,000 times than kneel to a mortal for even a moment. Kaori has gone very pale. That's not possible, she whispers. The contract is the contract. It's what my family passed down. There's no other kind. There's another kind, I say. There's a contract of equals. Nobody uses it because it's harder and riskier, and you have to offer the spirit something real instead of just chaining it. But for a great spirit, it's the only kind that works. You've been trying to leash a king. What you need to do is bargain with one. The room is completely silent. Rina's looking between us with her mouth open. Even Hataka, who came expecting nothing, is watching me now. Kaori stares at the array on her floor, the work of years, the failure she's carried like a stone, and something moves across her face that's too complicated to name. Hope and terror and a grief so old it's become part of her posture. If you're wrong, she says, and her voice shakes for the first time, and I summon it again with this new theory of yours, it'll come through furious. A great spirit, half manifested, in the middle of the city, with no bond holding it at all. It could level this quarter. People would die. She looks at me. That's the risk. Not to me. To them. I know, I say. So we don't do it here. We do it somewhere with nothing to break, and Hataka clears the ground first, and if it goes wrong, we run and I take the blame. But it won't go wrong. I hold her eyes. You've done everything right your whole life and been told it's your fault. Let me hand you the one piece nobody gave you. Then it's your summoning. Your bond. I don't touch it. I just tell you the terms. Kaori looks at me for a very long time. Why, she says finally, the same word Rina used in the market. Why do you care whether I can summon my family's spirit? I could give her the strategic answer. A great spirit is the most powerful asset I could possibly add to a team. It's true, and she'd hear the truth in it, and it would be exactly the wrong thing to say to a woman who's spent her life being valued for what she can produce. Because you've been carrying something heavy for years, I say instead, and I know how to make it lighter, and I don't have a good enough reason not to. Kaori's eyes fill. She turns away fast so I won't see, and wipes them with the back of her hand, and when she turns back her control is mostly restored but not all the way, and something in her has decided. Tomorrow, she says. At dawn. The old quarry north of the walls, nothing there to break but stone. She looks at Rina, then at me, and the ghost of a real expression finally reaches her face. If you're right, I'll owe you more than I can pay. If you're wrong, I'll never speak to you again, assuming we survive. Fair terms, I say. I accept. The quarry is a wide bowl of gray stone empty, half a mile from the nearest home. Hataka walks the whole rim at first light, confirming no one's near, and stations herself at the lip with a clear line to grab all of us and run. Rina crouches at the edge, tail low, unusually quiet. I stand behind Kaori, close enough to speak, far enough not to touch her array as she chalks it fresh on the quarry floor. And I coach her through the change. It's small, on paper. A dozen glyphs altered. The clause of compulsion struck out and replaced with a clause of offering. The summoner does not command, the summoner proposes. In place of you will serve me, the terms now read in the old script, something closer to I will give if you will give. I tell her exactly what to offer, because I know what this spirit values, because I studied it for a month in another life. Not obedience, not worship purpose. A spirit of its rank is bored to madness by the small mortal squabbles it gets summoned into. Offer it something worth its time. When it manifests, I say quietly, as she finishes, it's going to be contemptuous. It's going to look at you the way everyone's always looked at you, and it's going to be 1,000 times worse because it's right. By its own reckoning you are immortal, you are beneath it, and it will let you know. Don't flinch. Don't apologize. Don't command. Just make the offer, exactly as we wrote it, and mean it. Kaori's hands are trembling. She presses them flat against the stone to still them. And if it says no? Then it says no with dignity, and it goes, and no one gets hurt, and you'll have learned it was never your fault. That's a win too. I step back. But it won't say no. It's been waiting generations for someone to ask it properly. Kaori closes her eyes. She breathes. And she begins. The summoning is not like the game. In the game it was an animation, a flash, a stat block appearing. Here the air in the quarry goes wrong thick, then thin, then charged like the moment before lightning, and the chalked array flares with a light that has no color I can name, and the temperature drops so fast my breath clouds, and Rena's fur stands on end all down her arms, and something arrives. It comes up out of the array like a tide out of the earth, and it keeps coming, unfolding, vast coils of dark iridescence, a length of dragon that fills the quarry bowl and rises against the pale morning sky, scales like stormwater, eyes like two cold suns, ancient beyond the reach of the word ancient. Ryujin. The great spirit ruler of my old guide, the one almost nobody unlocked, here, real and enormous, and radiating a pressure that drives Rena flat to the ground and makes even Hataka's hand tighten white-knuckled on her sword. It looks down at Kaori. You, it says, and its voice is the quarry itself speaking, stone and cold water again. Little failure of a failing line. How many times will you drag me halfway into your filthy little world only to bungle the leash? The great head lowers, close, contemptuous, and Kaori is shaking but she does not run. Your ancestors were the same. Small creatures with a rope, trying to tie down the sea. I have suffered the insult of your bloodline for 400 years. Bind me and be done, or send me back, I care nothing which, so long as I need not look at you. I feel Kaori's terror from where I stand. I also feel the exact moment she decides not to give in to it, and it's one of the bravest things I've ever watched a person do. I'm not going to bind you, she says. The great eyes narrow. I'm not going to command you, or leash you, or ask you to serve. Her voice steadies word by word, finding its feet. My ancestors were wrong. Every summoner of my line was wrong, and I was wrong too for years, and it broke me, and I thought it was my fault. It wasn't. It was the terms. She lifts her chin. So I'm offering you different ones. Different terms. The spirit repeats, and there's something in it now that wasn't there before. Not respect, not yet, but attention, the flicker of a bored king hearing an unfamiliar word. I speak then once, because it's my part and only mine. An equal contract, I say. Not master and servant. Ally and ally. You are not compelled. You are not owned. In exchange, I meet those cold suns without flinching, because I know exactly who I'm talking to and exactly what it wants. In exchange, you get to stop being bored. You've spent 4 centuries being dragged into peasant errands by people trying to chain you. We're not offering you a leash. We're offering you a war worth your time, a game worth playing, purpose worthy of what you are. Say yes, and you're free the moment you tire of us. That's the deal. Take it or don't. The quarry is silent except for the wind. Ryujin turns those vast eyes from Kaori to me, and I feel the full weight of an intelligence that has watched empires rise and rot, measuring me, finding me small and then, faintly, finding me interesting, which for a creature this old is a rarer thing than I think it even remembers. A mortal, it says slowly, who does not want to own me. A long pause. How novel. How suspicious. The great head tilts. And the offering human? What do you truly give me, beneath the pretty words about boredom? A front row seat, I say honestly, to me taking apart everyone in this kingdom who thinks power is the same as being right. Starting small. Ending very large. You'll be entertained. I promise you that much. Something rumbles in the depths of the spirit that might, in 1,000 years, learn to be a laugh. Speak the terms, little summoner, Ryujin says to Kaori, and the contempt is still there, but it's aimed differently now, thinner, uncertain. Speak them properly. Offer, and I will consider. And Kaori does the new contract, the words we wrote, offered not up from below but across, level, one will to another. And I watch the bond that broke a dozen times finally close, not with a snap of a leash but with a handshake, the array flaring gold and going quiet, and Ryujin's vast form settling, still enormous, still cold, but bound to Kaori's line and through the terms to me. Kaori sinks to her knees on the stone. Not in defeat. In release. Years of it, all at once. Rena is at her side in an instant, arms around her, and Kaori lets herself be held, and cries finally, the way you cry when a stone you've carried so long you forgot it was there is suddenly, impossibly gone. There's a cost, of course. There's always a cost, and I clock it even in the middle of the victory. Ryujin is bound to me on equal terms, a great spirit, ally, A monster crisis 3 days later on the western villages, proving exactly what that's worth when it descends on a pack of hill trolls that would have leveled a hamlet and simply erases them. One contemptuous sweep, more raw power than I've seen since I got here. My team is now, overnight, a genuine force in this kingdom. But the bond ran through me, on terms I wrote, and Ryujin knows it. It stays coldly civil to me, I earned its attention. To Kaori it stays cold. The wound between them isn't healed, it's changed shape. She's no longer a failure who can't summon it. She's now the summoner whose bond only worked because a stranger told her how, and the proud old spirit will not let her forget that it kneels to no one and least of all to her line. Kaori feels it. I see her feel it, in the days after the way Ryujin answers me and merely tolerates her, and how that's its own kind of grief, to finally hold the thing you longed for and find it still doesn't love you. I don't have a clever fix for that one. It's not a mechanic. It's a wound between two people, well, a person and a dragon, and it'll only close through something real, over time, that I can't script. I file it, the way I file everything. A problem for later. A cost I paid without fully counting it. What I do know, standing in the quarry watching a great spirit coil against the morning sky and a broken summoner laugh through her tears with a beastfolk girl's arms around her, is that a week and a half ago I woke up alone in a gutter, and now I have a knight, a brawler, a summoner, and a dragon king, and I am no longer a man anyone in this world can safely underestimate. Which is precisely why, 3 days after the troll crisis, a sealed letter arrives at the tavern, stamped with the crest of the Royal Academy of Magic and invitation, addressed to the unknown genius of the Eastern Marshes, to compete in the kingdom's grand magic tournament. I read it twice. That's good, isn't it? Rena says, reading over my shoulder. That's famous. That's a good thing. Hataka takes the letter from me, reads it, and doesn't smile. It's an invitation to stand in front of every powerful person in the kingdom, she says quietly, and show them all exactly what you can do. Yes. I say, and I feel the old edge come up, the raid boss grin, and under it, something colder and more careful, because I know what it means to become visible to power. That's the problem with it. And the point. The Royal Academy tournament isn't a fight. It's a market, and I'm the merchandise. I understand this the moment I walk into the competitors' hall and feel every eye assess me the way I once assessed adventurers off a contract board. The Academy's grand tournament is where the kingdom's powerful come to shop for talent to patronize, for rivals to measure, for pieces to add to their boards. Every noble house sends its prodigy. Every faction sends its scout. And the two thrones in waiting, they say, always watch from the royal box. I've spent a week and a half becoming visible. Now I get to learn exactly what that costs. The competitors are academy mages, most of them students of the formal magical tradition, trained from childhood in the discipline casting this world reveres. They wear house colors and academy sashes, and they carry themselves with the specific arrogance of people who've been told their whole lives that they're the best, and who have never once met someone from outside the system who might be better. Which is how I end up cornered, before I've even registered, by the best of them. So this is it. The young man who steps into my path is tall, silver-haired, immaculate, radiating the effortless confidence of raw talent that's never been tested by anything real. His academy sash is heavy with honors. Behind him a cluster of students smirk on cue. The unknown genius of the marshes. I confess I expected more. His eyes flick over me, my repaired coat, the guild issue at my hip. A level 1 noble who farms bog corpses with peasant medicine and thinks it makes him a mage. Regulus. Academy champion, 3 years running. I only introduce myself because I like the people I'm about to beat to know whose name to curse. Takumi, I say. And I, on the rolls. You said champion, you're seated first, then. Which means if we both keep winning, we meet in the final. If you last that long. He smiles the way the scales merchant smiled. You won't. You've never faced trained casting. You've never even studied at the academy. You farm undead. This isn't a bog, marsh mage. This is where real magic is decided. Rena beside me, bristles, ears flat, and I put a hand on her arm before she says something that gets her thrown out. Hataka, 3 paces back in her knight's plate, watches Regulus with the flat professional dislike of someone rating a threat and finding it overrated. You're probably right, I tell Regulus mildly. I've never studied at your academy. I don't know your forms or your disciplines or the correct way to cast anything. Total outsider. No formal training at all. Regulus's smile widens, satisfied. Which means, I add, you have no idea what I'm going to do. And I have every idea what you're going to do, because you learned it from the same 3 masters as everyone else in this hall. I meet his eyes. You've spent 3 years beating people who think exactly like you. I don't. That's not going to feel the way you expect it to. His smile flickers, just slightly. Then he laughs and walks off with his cluster, and Rena lets out a breath. I hate him, she says. Good instinct, I say. Hold on to it. We're going to use it. Here is the thing Regulus and every trained mage in this hall doesn't understand, and can't, because they've never seen the world from where I've seen it. They cast spells. Individual, disciplined, beautiful spells, each one a complete and proper thing, deployed with technique. That's how magic works here, how it's always worked, a tradition centuries deep of perfecting single castings. I don't cast spells. I run rotations. Because for 7 years I was the #1 raider in a world made of these same mechanics, and a raider doesn't cast the best single spell. A raider chains them sequences of abilities timed to the fraction of a second, each one setting up the next, exploiting cooldowns and windows and interactions that the designers never intended and that individual play never discovers. Combos. Weaves. Cancels. The whole invisible layer of how magic actually interacts with itself that you only find when 10,000 players spend 7 years min-maxing every edge case. Nobody in this world has 10,000 players. Nobody has spent 7 years breaking the system for sport. They have masters and disciplines and correct forms. I have the meta game. I spend the night before the first round not resting but practicing quietly, in a rented yard, running the muscle memory of combos my old body knew cold, teaching Knee's newly strong body to execute what my mind already owns. A low fire lance cancelled early into a wind step that carries the caster inside guard range before the spell even resolves a movement tech no formal mage uses because formally it's a wasted cast. A frostglyph laid not to freeze the enemy but to freeze the ground under my own next step, so I slide out of a counterattack a half-beat faster than a human should move. Stacking 2 minor shocks a heartbeat apart so the second lands while the target's still flinching from the first, doubling the effective stagger for the cost of 1.5 spells. Individually, each of these is worse than a proper academy casting. That's why no one uses them. Together, chain, timed, there's something this world has never seen, not a mage but a mechanism. You keep muttering numbers, Kaori observes from a corner of the yard, where she's watching with Ryujin coiled small and cold and unimpressed beside her. Timings. Frame counts. You cast like you're reading a page only you can see. I say, and cancel a fire lance into a wind step and end the movement with a shock stacked on itself, and the practice dummy across the yard cracks down the middle. The whole page. It's the only thing I brought with me. Crude, Ryujin remarks, watching. Ugly. Nothing a proud spirit would ever deign to do. A pause. Effective, though. These academy children will not have the faintest idea what killed them. From a great spirit, that's practically a benediction. The opening rounds go the way I want them to, which is to say fast, brutal, and completely bewildering to everyone watching. My first opponent is a house prodigy who opens with a textbook casting a properly formed, genuinely powerful fireburst, exactly the correct opening move, telegraphed the way every academy mage telegraphs because they've all been trained to the same rhythm. I know it's coming before he starts, because I know the form, because I wrote the guide on the form. I frostglyph my own footing and slide sideways out of it, close the distance during his recovery window the half-second of vulnerability after any full casting that formal duelists respect by keeping their distance, and that I have spent 7 years learning to punish, and I'm inside his guard with a double-stacked shock before he's finished being proud of his fireburst. He's down in under 10 seconds. The crowd, which came to watch elegant magical dueling, goes quiet in the confused way crowds do when something breaks their expectations. The second round is faster. The third, faster still. By the quarterfinals the muttering in the stands has changed character. It's not who is this nobody anymore, it's what is he doing, which is a much more dangerous kind of attention, and I feel it settle on me from a high boxes where the powerful sit. I don't look up at the royal box. I know it's there. I know who's in it. I keep my eyes on the arena and I do my job, because the surest way to survive being watched by power is to give it something too impressive to ignore and too strange to easily use. Between rounds, in the competitor's hall, Regulus is winning too brilliantly, properly, the crowd loving his elegant dismantling of opponent after opponent. He catches my eye across the hall each time, and each time his confidence is a shade more forced, because he's watched what I do to trained mages, and he's smart enough, under the arrogance, to know his training is exactly the thing I eat. The seedings hold. Regulus and I both reach the semi-finals. And the draw puts us against each other. He tries to rattle me before we walk out. "Whatever gutter tricks you've been using on those house nobodies," he says, low, as we wait in the tunnel to the arena, "they won't work on me. I've watched every one of your matches. I know what you do now."
I've adjusted.
"I know you have," I say. "You've watched me cancel casts and close distance and punish recovery windows. So you'll hold the middle distance, refuse to overcommit to a full casting, and force me to come to you on open ground where your superior power decides it. It's the correct adjustment. It's exactly what a champion should do." Regulus's jaw tightens, because I've just described his plan back to him. "The problem," I go on, "is that I know you adjusted, which means I've adjusted to your adjustment. You've watched 3 of my matches. I've watched 7 years of mages exactly like you. You're playing checkers and you think it's chess. Nothing personal, you're genuinely good. You're just good at a game I finished a long time ago." We walk out. The arena roars. The crowd's been waiting for this. The champion against the anomaly. Across the sand, Regulus settles into a stance I recognize instantly, mid-distance, weight-balanced, refusing to commit, exactly as I said. He's not going to give me a full casting to punish. He's going to make me come to him and beat me with raw trained power on open ground. It's the right play. It's what I'd tell someone to do against me. So I don't do what he's expecting me to do about it. I don't close the distance. I don't try to punish a recovery window he's not going to give me. Instead, I open with the ugliest, most wasteful thing in my whole repertoire, a spell no formal mage would ever cast because on its own it does almost nothing. A wide, low frostglyph, not aimed at him, laid across the entire arena floor between us, a thin skin of ice on the sand. Regulus laughs. "A floor spell? That's your I wind step onto my own ice." And I move not toward him in a straight line he can meet, but sideways, sliding on the frost at a speed no one on foot can match, a diagonal skate that carries me across the arena in a curve, and he adjusts to face me, but you can't pivot on ice the way you can on sand, and he was standing on the frost too, at the edge of it, because I laid it under his feet as well as mine. He shifts his weight to track me and his footing slides, just a few inches, just enough the exact vulnerability window I couldn't get from his casting, I've taken from his balance instead. I stack 2 shocks a heartbeat apart into that half second of lost footing. The first staggers him. The second lands while he's staggered, doubling it. And while he's reeling, I've already cancelled into the fire lance, held low, wind-stepping the last few feet on my own ice straight inside his guard, and I end it exactly where 7 years of muscle memory says to end it, and Regulus, Academy champion, 3 years running, the best formally trained mage of his generation, goes down onto the frosted sand and does not get up. 9 seconds. Maybe 10. The arena is completely, absolutely silent. It's the silence of thousands of people who came to watch a champion and instead watched something they have no framework for. A level 1 outsider with no academy training take apart the best mage in the kingdom using tricks that individually should not have worked and together were unanswerable. Nobody cheers, at first, because nobody's sure what they just saw. And that silence, I've learned, is worth more than any cheer. Cheers are for the expected. Silence is for the thing that changes what people think is possible. Then it breaks all at once, a roar, and my name, both my names, Takumi and Ni, and Marshmage and Rena is on her feet screaming, and even Kaori is standing, and Hataka, arms folded at the tunnel mouth, allows herself the smallest, driest nod of a woman whose strange fish has just swallowed the whole pond. I help Regulus up. His face is gray with shock and something worse, the specific devastation of a person discovering their best was never the ceiling they thought it was. "That's not possible," he says, dazed. The same words Kaori used. The same words the merchant's face wore. "The floor spell, it's useless, I've been taught." "You've been taught what's useful in a duel between 2 people who fight the same way." I say quietly, so the crowd doesn't hear, because I don't need to grind him into the sand. I've already won, and humiliated rival who understands why he lost is worth more than a broken one. "You're genuinely one of the best I've faced here. You just never had anyone to teach you the parts your masters didn't know existed." I let go of his arm. "If you ever want to learn how the useless spells win, come find me. I'm not being smug. I mean it." Regulus stares at me for a long moment, and I watch 3 years of certainty crack open, and underneath it grudging furious, but real the first flicker of something that isn't hatred. Curiosity. The most dangerous and useful thing you can plant in a rival. I might, he says finally, and walks off the sand a different man than he walked on. I do finally look up at the royal box then. 2 figures. I know who they are even at this distance, because the whole hall does, and because Hataka murmured their descriptions to me before the first round like a knight briefing a soldier walking into a minefield. The first prince, Kataru, leans forward on the box rail, and even across the arena I can feel the quality of his attention, not the crowd's astonishment, not Regulus's shattered awe, but something cool and appraising and acquisitive, a man looking at a new piece and calculating exactly what board it belongs on and whether it can be owned or must be removed. It's the scales merchant's calculation, elevated to the level of a throne. My skin crawls. Beside him, the second prince, Sora younger, Ernest, watching me with an open hunger that's easier to read and I suspect easier to use, a man who wants an ally and doesn't yet know he wants a friend. 2 princes. 1 anomaly. And I've just made myself, in 9 seconds on the sand, exactly the kind of visible that Hataka warned me about, too impressive to ignore, too useful to leave unclaimed, too strange to safely trust. Well, I say as my team closes around me, Rina hanging off my arm and shouting, Kaori almost smiling, Ryujin coiled cold and pleased at having watched a mortal humiliate a hall of the proud. That was the easy part. Hataka follows my gaze up to the box, to the 2 princes now conferring, both of them looking down at me. Yes, she says grimly. It was. The second prince finds me before the final, which tells me something about him. He moves fast, and he moves himself, without waiting for an intermediary. Sora comes to the competitors. Hall in person with only 2 guards, and he's younger up close than he looked in the box, early 20s, Ernest, with a slightly too eager warmth of a man who spent his whole life being the other prince and has learned to grab connections before they slip away. That was extraordinary, he says, and he means it, no court flattery in it, just genuine astonishment. I've watched Regulus win 3 years running. I've never seen anyone make him look like a student. What you did, the floor spell, the ice, no one in the academy would even think of it. No one in the academy has a reason to, I say. It only works if you've spent a long time asking what happens when magic is used wrong on purpose. Sora laughs, delighted, and then his face turns careful in a way he thinks he's hiding and isn't. Here it comes. You should have a patron, he says. A man of your gifts, with no house, no academy standing, you'll be torn apart in this court within a season. Talent without protection is just prey. But under a patron, under me, you'd have the resources of a prince, and I'd have. He catches himself. I'd have the honor of sponsoring the greatest mage of the age. It's a fair exchange. Say yes and you never worry about coin or safety again. He's not wrong. That's the trap of it, everything he's saying is true. And underneath the true words is the thing he isn't saying, which I read as clearly as I read Regulus's stance. The second prince, overshadowed by his brother, wants a weapon. He wants me, pointed at Kataru, a piece he can play. He's earnest and he's kind and he still thinks of me as an acquisition, because leverage is the only language he's ever been taught to speak in. I don't blame him for it. But I don't say yes, either. Let me think about it, I say. It's a serious offer and it deserves a serious answer. Ask me again after the final. Sora blinks, unused to let me think, which in a court means people either grovel yes or flee no. He recovers with a nod. After the final, then. I hope you'll say yes. And more quietly, with a flash of the loneliness under the leverage, I could use a friend who isn't afraid of my brother. That last part isn't strategy. That part slips out. I file it, and I file the man who let it slip, because it's the truest thing he said and he doesn't even know he said it. The Duchess is more dangerous, because she doesn't ask for anything. Midori Kagayashi finds me that evening, in the quiet of the competitors. Lodging, and she doesn't come with an offer at all, she comes with a gift, which is a far more expensive thing to accept. She's older, elegant, with the still patient watchfulness of a woman who has outlived a great many people who underestimated her. You'll refuse the little prince, she says, not asking. You've the look of a man who won't be owned. Good. Ownership is crude. She sets a small worn book on the table between us, bound in gray leather, humming faintly with power that raises the hair on my arms. So instead of asking you for anything, I'll give you something. Charm magic. Suggestion. Very old, very rare, the art of bending a mind gently rather than a body forcefully. There isn't a duke in this kingdom who wouldn't kill for it. Take it. Learn it. Owe me nothing. I look at the book and I know exactly what it is, because of course I do a legendary utility discipline, gated in my old life behind a faction chain, one of the most powerful non-combat tools in the whole system. And I know exactly what she's doing, because it's the oldest trick there is, older than any game. A gift with no price tag is the most expensive thing you can accept, because the debt is unspoken, and unspoken debts have no ceiling. Nothing, I say. You give me one of the rarest arts in the kingdom, and I owe you nothing. Nothing at all. Her smile is serene. Except perhaps that when the day comes I need a small favor from the greatest mage of the age, a word in the right ear, a hand where a hand is needed, you'll remember who gave you the thing that made you untouchable. She rises. That's not a price. That's just how the world works. Keep the book. Or don't. But you'd be a fool to burn a tool this rare over a debt I've promised you'll never have to pay. She leaves the book. She leaves. Kaori, who's been silent in the corner with Ryujin coiled small at her feet, lets out a slow breath. She's the most frightening person I've ever met, and she never raised her voice. She's the most honest kind of dangerous, I say, picking up the book, feeling the old power thrum in it. She told me exactly what the trap is and offered it anyway, because she's betting I'm greedy enough to walk into it with my eyes open. I turn it over in my hands. A weapon I could genuinely use. A hook I genuinely have to swallow. The infuriating thing is she's right. It's too useful to throw away. Then keep it, Ryujin rumbles, cold, and simply refuse to be her instrument when she comes to collect. A blade owes nothing to the one who gifted it. That's the plan, I say. Learn the tool. Refuse the leash. Same as I did with you. Ryujin's great eye slides toward me, unamused and very faintly amused. I begin to see why the Duchess likes you. You are both thieves. She merely dresses better. The final is against Sora. He advanced through his half of the bracket the way a prince advances competently, with good training and the quiet advantages of royal tutors, and when the draw put us together I watched something complicated cross his face in the tunnel. He wants me as an ally, and now he has to fight me, and if he loses badly it undercuts the patron he's trying to be, and if I let him win it's an insult worse than losing. There's no clean outcome for him. It's the kind of trap that makes a lonely man lonelier. I decide, standing in the tunnel, that I'm not going to give him a clean win or a clean loss. I'm going to give him something better, which is the truth. The arena is packed. The whole court is watching. I can feel Kataru's cool appraisal from the box, and the Duchess somewhere in the stands, and thousands of commoners who've adopted the level 1 marsh mage as their own. Sora and I face each other across the sand, and he settles into a stance, and I read it the way I read all of them. The trouble for Sora is that he's a trained fighter, and trained means patterned, and patterns are the one thing I never fail to see. He's better than Regulus in raw discipline royal tutors, years of it, but every one of those years taught him the same forms, the same responses, the same correct answers, and I've spent 7 years learning the correct answers precisely so I could punish them. I don't beat Sora with the ice trick. He watched that match, he's ready for the floor spell. I beat him by reading, in real time, every trained reflex he has. He opens with a probing casting and I'm already moving to where the follow-up must go, because his school only teaches one follow-up to that opening. He adjusts, and I'm ahead of the adjustment, because his school teaches only one adjustment. Everything he does is correct, and correct is a language I'm fluent in, and I answer each correct move with a specific wrong-on-purpose counter that his masters never warned him about. It's not fast, like Regulus. It's slow and total, a prince discovering, move by move, that the entire tradition he was raised in is a book I've already read to the last page. I don't humiliate him. I don't stack him into the sand. I just outreads him over and over, until he's spent, breathing hard, his best training answered every time, and he knows the whole arena knows that if I wanted to end it I could have ended it a dozen exchanges ago. I disarm him instead of dropping him. I knock his focus from his hand with a wind step and stand back, blade of frost hovering, and I don't strike. I give him the moment to yield with his feet under him and his dignity intact. Sora looks at me across the sand, chest heaving, and I watch him understand that I've beaten him and protected him, both at once, which is not a thing a pawn does for a master. I yield, he says, loud enough for the box to hear. The arena erupts. Champion. The Marsh Mage. My name from 10,000 throats. And then into the roar, I do the thing I've been planning since the tunnel, the thing that costs me a prince's patronage and buys me something I've decided is worth more. I turn to the crowd. I raise my voice, and because I've won, because I'm champion, they quiet to hear me. Prince Sora offered me his patronage, I say, and Sora's head comes up sharp. It was a generous offer and an honorable one, and he made it himself to my face, which is more than most powerful men bother to do. A pause. I let that land as praise, because it is. But I'm going to refuse it. Not because there's anything wrong with the prince. Because I've spent my whole life being a number on someone else's ledger, a piece on someone else's board, and I'm done being owned. I look up, past Sora, straight at the royal box, straight at Kataru's cool watching face. I don't belong to any prince. I don't belong to any house. I'm a free man and a commoner's champion, and I'll answer to my own conscience and the law of this kingdom, and to nothing else. The silence lasts one heartbeat. Then the commoners in the stands, the ones who adopted me, the ones who have spent their whole lives being the ledger entries and the pieces they don't cheer. They roar, a different sound than before, deeper, hungrier, the sound of people hearing one of their own say out loud the thing they've never been allowed to say. It rolls around the arena and doesn't stop, and I feel it settle over me like armor, because I've just made myself something more useful than any prince's weapon, a public figure the crowd loves, whom no one can quietly disappear without answering to a great many people. Down on the sand, Sora stares at me. And here's the moment I gambled everything on. I've just publicly refused him, in front of the whole court, an insult that could turn a slighted prince into an enemy for life. But I didn't refuse him the way you refuse a man you don't respect. I praised him first, singled him out as honorable, and then refused ownership itself rather than refusing him. And I watched Sora work through at the sting, then the reading of the words, then the slow realization that I've handed him something he's never had, a man who told him the truth to his face and treated him as a peer instead of a purchaser. The face slap he expected was a pawn saying yes. What he got was an equal saying no. He walks across the sand toward me, and his guards tense, and the crowd hushes, and Sora stops in front of me, and instead of anger he holds out his hand. "You're the first person in my whole life," he says, quiet, just for me, under the noise, who told me no without wanting something from me for it. Something raw and grateful flickers across his face. I asked for a weapon. I think I'd rather have a friend. I take his hand. Friend's cheaper, I say. No debt either way. Sora laughs, a real one, startled out of him and the crowd, seeing the champion and the prince shake hands, roars its approval, and up in the box I see Kataru rise smoothly to his feet and leave without a word, and that the first prince's silent departure is the thing that turns the cold spot in my stomach to ice. Because I've just made 3 moves at once, and I know it. I've won the crowd. I've turned a would-be master into a genuine friend. And I've told the most dangerous man in the kingdom publicly that I refuse to be owned. 2 of those were the right play. The third just told Kataru everything he needs to know: I can't be recruited. Which leaves him only one other option. You realize. Hataka says that night, when we're back at the tavern and the team is picking apart the day, that you just declared yourself unavailable to the first prince in front of the entire court. I refused both princes, I point out. You refused Sora warmly, and made a friend. You refused Kataru silently, and made an enemy. She's not angry, she's a knight laying out a field. A man like Kataru recruits, or he removes. You've closed the first door. There's only the other one left. Rina, who's been glowing all evening at her team winning the whole tournament, goes quiet. Kaori sets down her cup. She's right, Kaori says. I felt it, up in the stands, when you looked at his box. Something in him went cold. Decided. He is a predator who was told his prey cannot be tamed. Ryujin rumbles from the corner, ancient and unbothered. Predators do not sulk over such news. They begin to plan the kill. I know, I say. And I do know, and I made the choice with my eyes open, the same way the Duchess handed me the book with my eyes open. Because the alternative, becoming Kataru's weapon, was worse than being his target. A target can see the arrow coming. A weapon never even knows it's been pointed. I look around the table: a knight, a brawler, a summoner, a dragon, and somewhere across the city a lonely prince who's now improbably my friend. He'll move, I say. Probably not directly. Men like him don't. He'll find the softest thing near me and press on it until I bend, or he'll find something to hang around my neck and call it treason. So we don't wait for it. I pull the Duchess's grey book toward me across the table, and Sora's untaken patronage, and the whole tangle of debts and offers and threats I've collected in 3 days at court. We figure out what he's actually building. Because he's been at this a lot longer than 3 days, and I'd bet everything I own that the bandits, and the taxes, and the Duchess, and even Sora, none of it separate. It's all one machine. I just can't see the whole of it yet. So what do we do until you can? Rena asks. I close the grey book. Outside, the city that arrested me 2 weeks ago is chanting my name in taverns it doesn't yet know it's chanting in. We get ready, I say. And we watch who comes to us next. I don't have to wait long. The next morning, a grim swordsman with a dead man's eyes is waiting outside the tavern, asking for the champion by name, and he calls himself the last commander of the Ryusei. The man waiting outside the tavern has the eyes of someone who's already buried everyone he loves and is just waiting for permission to join them. He's broad gray at the temples, dressed like a laborer but standing like a soldier, with a sword he keeps wrapped in cloth so it won't be seen for what it is. When I come out, he doesn't bow, doesn't flatter, doesn't do any of the things men do when they want something from a champion. He just looks at me the way you'd look at the last light in a long dark, wanting to believe in it and terrified to. Gunzo, he says. Last commander of the Ryusei. You've heard of us. The bandits, I say carefully, because Hataka has come out behind me and her hand has drifted toward her sword, that Prince Kataru wiped out last year. Robbed nobles, gave the take to the poor. Branded criminals. Hunted down. That's the story they tell. His jaw works. It's a lie stitched to a truth. We did rob nobles. We did feed the poor with it. We robbed the specific nobles who were starving whole villages with taxes the crown never authorized, and we gave it back to the people they stole it from. That's not banditry. That's the only justice anyone out there was ever going to get. He steps closer, and Hataka tenses, and I hold up a hand to stay her. And when Kataru came for us, he didn't come to stop bandits. He came to stop witnesses. We knew where the illegal taxes were going. We were the only people in the kingdom stupid enough to say so out loud. So he slaughtered us, called us criminals, and buried the truth with the bodies. His voice cracks, just once, iron under strain. 200 of us. He took 200 of us. And the survivors, the handful who ran, he's got them in cages in a first-order holding at the Eastern Estates, waiting to hang as bandits so the story stays clean. He kneels then, right there in the street, cloth-wrapped sword laid flat across his palms, offering it up. I have nothing left to bargain with but myself, he says. Take me as a servant. A bondsman. Contract me on any terms you like, and I'll spend the rest of my life in your service. All I ask is that you help me save the ones still in the cages, and someday clear the names of the ones who aren't. They died as heroes and the whole kingdom thinks they were thieves. Let them be remembered right. That's all. That's everything. The street is very quiet. I look down at this man on his knees, and I don't see a unit, and I don't see an asset, though the strategist in me is already noting inside knowledge, combat veteran, motivated, and I make myself set that voice down, because a man doesn't kneel in the street offering his whole self over the bones of 200 dead unless he means every word. I look at Hataka. She's a knight of this kingdom. Everything Gunzo just said is treason to say and worse to believe, and she stood by the law her whole life. Get up, Hataka says quietly to Gunzo. And then to me low, I've heard the whispers about the Ryusei. Every knight has. We were told they were bandits and we were told not to ask questions, and I didn't ask, because that's what a good knight does. Her mouth is a hard line. I've been ashamed of that for a year. If he's telling the truth, he's telling the truth, I say. Because I can see at the shape of the machine I told the team about last night, one more gear of it clicking into place. A prince who systematically destroys anyone who could unite the commoners. Righteous bandits who fed the poor and named the crime would be exactly the kind of people he'd have to erase and rewrite. It fits the pattern too well to be a lie. Or enough of it that the parts that matter are true. I crouch to Gunzo's level, so we're eye to eye. I'm not going to make you a servant, I tell him. I don't own people. I made that fairly public yesterday. A flicker of confusion crosses his ravaged face. But I'll help you get the survivors out of those cages, And I'll help you clear your dead not because you knelt, but because if half of what you said is true, then Kataru did it to bury a crime, and burying that crime is exactly the thing I intend to dig up. I hold out my hand. You want to serve? Serve as a free man. Same as everyone on this team. That's the only deal I offer. Gunzo stares at my hand like he's forgotten what one is for. Then he takes it, and this hard hollowed-out man who buried 200 people bows his head over our clasped hands and does not weep, only shakes once all through, the way a bridge shakes under a weight it was sure would break it. Free man, he says roughly. I'd forgotten that was a thing I could be. The holding at the Eastern Estates is a first-order compound, a walled manor half-turned fortress, run by a first-order house that answers to Kataru, with the surviving Ryuci kept in stone cells behind the stables, guarded, awaiting a hanging scheduled for the turn of the season, 3 days off. Gunzo knows it inside out, because he scouted it for a month before he ran out of courage and options and came to find me instead. He draws it in the dirt of the tavern yard while the whole team crouches around the walls, the gate, the guard rotation, the cells, the single well, the stables where they keep the horses, and past them the survivors. 11 of them left, he says. That's all. 11, out of 200. 2 of them are wounded and can't run far. There are maybe 30 guards, housemen, plus a first-order knight commanding a real one, not a thug. The wall's too high to climb quiet, and the gate's too watched to rush. I've turned it over 100 nights, and I can't see a way that doesn't get everyone killed. He sits back on his heels. That's why I came to you. Everyone says the marsh mage wins fights nobody should win. I study the map in the dirt. And I feel the old thing rise in me, not the raider counting cooldowns, but something that grew out of it, the part that looks at an impossible encounter and refuses to accept that impossible is a real category. We don't rush the gate and we don't climb the wall, I say. 30 guards and a first-order knight in a straight fight we lose, or we win so bloody it proves Kataru right about us being violent criminals. That's a trap even if we win it. So we don't fight the fortress. We take the fortress apart into pieces small enough to beat one at a time. I look up at my team, each of them, and I lay it out the way I once called a raid, every specialist a role, every role a mechanic. Nobody here is strong enough to beat that place alone. Together, timed right, we don't have to be. That's the whole trick. It's always the whole trick. Rina grins, ears up. Hataka nods slowly, a soldier recognizing a plan that might actually work. Kaori is quiet, Ryujin coiled cold beside her. Gunzo watches me like a drowning man watching a rope come down. Here's how it goes, I say. We move on the second night, an hour past the guard change, when the fresh watch is settled and the old watch is asleep and the whole compound is at its lowest ebb. A window I know exists because guard rotations are guard rotations, the same in the game and the same here, and I've spent my whole life exploiting the hour when a system is at its weakest. Kaori and Ryujin go first, and they're the reason the whole thing is possible. A great spirit can do things no infiltrator can, and the one I need most isn't destruction, it's concealment. Ryujin coils vast and dark over the compound's outer wall, and where its shadow falls the moonlight simply stops, a drowned lightless dark spilling down the stone like water, and under that unnatural dark Kaori walks up to the base of the wall unseen and lays a summoner's silence ward across a 20-foot stretch. No sound crosses it, no cry, no clash of arms. That silent, blind stretch of wall is our door. It's not a real door. It's a door I've made, out of a dragon's shadow and a summoner's ward, in a place the fortress didn't know it had a weakness. Under the dark and through the silence go Rina and Hataka. Rina goes up the wall like it isn't their beastfolk fast, beastfolk strong, everything the merchant sneered at, up and over in 3 heartbeats and dropping soundless into the yard beyond. Hataka follows heavier but no less sure, and inside the silence ward their landing makes no noise the fortress can hear. Their job isn't to fight. Their job is the extraction, get to the cells, get the 11 survivors out and moving to the wall while the guards are still blind and deaf to that quarter. Gunzo goes with them, because Gunzo knows the way to the cells in the dark, and more because the 11 in the cages need to see his face, need to know it's the Ryuci come for them, and not some trick, so they move quiet instead of screaming when the cell doors open. And I stay outside the wall with a spirit and a plan and a fistful of timing, because my job is the hardest and the least heroic. I have to make sure the rest of the fortress is looking the wrong way for exactly long enough. I do it the way I do everything, by turning the system against itself. There's a well inside the compound and a single alarm bell by the gate, and the whole guard response depends on the bell system, a mechanic, a rule I can break. So while Rina and Hataka are inside working the cells, I use the one tool I've got that's built for exactly this. Not the marsh combos, not brute force, but the Duchess's Grey Book, open for the first time in earnest. I don't use the charm magic on the fortress. I don't need to, and I've promised myself I'll spend it carefully. Instead I use the lesser trick in the book, a suggestion, thin and cheap, cast at a single distracted gate guard leaning near the bell. Nothing is wrong. Not a command he'll notice. Just a soft thumb on the scale of his attention, so that when a horse in the stable stamps and a cell door somewhere makes a sound it shouldn't, his instinct to reach for the bell comes a half-second slow, and a half-second slow is all the difference between an alarm and no alarm. I've stolen the fortress's reaction window the same way I stole Regulus's balance. It works. It works because everything works when you understand what the system actually rewards and what it only pretends to. Inside, Rina and Hataka and Gunzo get all 11 out, the 2 wounded carried between them, and move them under the dark and through the silence to the wall, and Rina hauls them up and Hataka steadies them down, and one by one, soundless, invisible, 11 condemned people who were 3 days from a lying gallows come over the stone into the free dark on the other side. And it almost goes clean. The First Order Knight commanding the compound is not a fool, and no suggestion touches him, because I never got close enough. He wakes to some instinct a soldier can't name, and he comes out into the yard, and he sees the drowned dark on the wall, the impossible silent stretch, the last of the prisoners going over, and he doesn't reach for the bell, he shouts, his own voice cutting where the ward can't stop a man standing outside it, and the fortress begins to wake. That's the moment the whole thing could turn into the massacre Gunzo feared. But I plan for the fortress waking, because a good plan assumes the enemy gets a turn. Ryujin's shadow lifts off the wall in one great cold sweep, not to kill. I told it plainly, we do not add bodies to this. We are not what Kataru says we are, but to terrify. A great spirit ruler rearing enormous against the moon over the fortress. Cold suns for eyes, and 30 guards and 1 knight look up at a dragon king filling the sky, and every instinct they own screams run. And for the crucial handful of heartbeats they do exactly that, they scatter, and in those heartbeats we are gone over. The wall into the dark, the 11 survivors folded into our line, running for the horses. Gunzo hit a mile out. No alarm bell rang. No Ryusei died. And though the fortress will never quite understand what hit it, not one of Kataru's guards died either, which matters more than any of them will know, because Kataru will want to call this a bandit atrocity, and there's no atrocity to point to. Just an empty set of cells and a story his own men won't be able to tell without describing a dragon. We ride hard and we don't stop until the estates are far behind, and then in a copse off the old road as the sky grays toward dawn, we finally stop, and the 11 survivors of the Ryusei sit in the wet grass and stare at Gunzo like he's risen from among the 200, and one of them, a woman with a wound Kaori kneels to bind, keeps saying his name over and over like she can't make it be real. Gunzo goes among them. He touches shoulders, says the names of the dead they share, and this hollow man who came to me with a dead man's eyes is, for the first time, lit from somewhere not happy. He's too broken for happy, but purposeful, a man who has clawed 11 of his people back out of a lie. He comes to me, at the edge of the copse, where I'm standing watch over a rescue that worked. You could have said no, he says. It was nothing to you. 11 strangers and a war with the most dangerous man in the kingdom. You could have let us hang and slept fine. Probably, I say. But I've been a number in someone's ledger, waiting to be erased. I wasn't going to leave 11 people sitting in cages waiting for the same thing when I knew how to open the doors. Gunzo is quiet a long moment. Then, the names. The dead. You said someday. Did you mean it, or was that just the thing a man says to get another man off his knees? I look east, back the way we came, toward a fortress with empty cells and a first-order house that answers to a prince, and past it in my mind, to the whole machine. I can now nearly see the shape of the taxes, the bandits, the massacre as smokescreen, the Duchess's hook, Sora's loneliness, all of it one design. I meant it, I say. But I want you to understand what you've pulled me into, because you deserve the truth. Tonight we beat a fortress. That was the easy part, 30 guards and a wall. That's just tactics. I can win tactics all day. I turned to face him. Clearing your dead means proving Kataru used the massacre to bury a crime. That's not a fortress. That's the first prince of the kingdom, in a court that protects him. In a game of politics I don't know the rules of yet. I let out a slow breath, and for the first time in a long time I feel at the exact edge of what I can do, and the vast dark past it. I can beat any fight you put in front of me. But I just realized, standing on that wall, that Kataru isn't going to give me a fight. He's going to give me a court. And I'm out of my depth in a court the way I was out of my depth in that alley on my first day. Gunzo studies me, the champion who wins fights nobody should win, admitting there's a fight he doesn't know how to win. Then you'd better learn to swim, he says, same as I learned to be a free man. Fast. Behind us the 11 rescued sit in the grey dawn light, alive, free, breathing proof that the impossible is still not a real category. Ahead of us, somewhere in a palace, a prince is about to learn his cages are empty, and start building something I can't yet see. I'm going to need help, I don't have to see it. Not a sword. Not a spirit's raw power. Something else. A mind built for exactly the water I'm drowning in. I just don't know yet where to find one. The problem with winning is that every victory hands you a new debt. A week after the rescue I sit at the table in the townhouse because I have a townhouse now, rented with tournament winnings, a real roof for a growing team, and I try to draw the whole tangle on paper the way Gunzo drew the fortress in the dirt, and I can't do it. Every line I draw crosses 3 others. I owe Gunzo the impossible thing, clearing 200 dead names against the first prince. I owe Sora a friendship I actually value, which means I owe him honesty and probably protection, because a lonely prince who befriends the crowd's champion has painted a target on himself too. I owe the Duchess an unspoken debt for a book I've now used, which means her collection notice could come any day. And over all of it hangs Kataru, who by now knows his cages are empty and his story has a hole in it, and who is not the kind of man to rage, he's the kind of man to recalculate. 4 obligations, 1 enemy, and every one of them connected to the others in ways I can feel but can't see. You've been staring at that page for an hour. Rena says, dropping into the chair across from me and stealing a piece of my bread. You do the thing. The mutter numbers thing. Except there's no numbers this time and you keep not muttering them. That's the problem, I say. There are no numbers. This isn't a fight, or a farm, or a fortress. Everything I'm good at cost per kill, guard rotations, combat rotations, terrain, none of it applies. I win by turning systems against themselves. But I don't know the rules of this system. I push the page away. Court politics is a game I never played. In my old life I never touched it. I raided. I ground. I optimized. I never once cared what a duke thought of a prince. And now the whole board is dukes and princes, and I'm reading it like a man who learned chess and got sat down at a game where the pieces lie to you. Hataka, cleaning her sword by the window, doesn't look up. You beat a fortress with 30 guards and a first-order knight last week. That's exactly the point. I can beat anything with a wall around it. Kataru isn't going to build a wall. He's going to build a story, and hang it around one of us, and there's no combo for that. Leveling doesn't solve it. Ryujin flattening a palace doesn't solve it, that just makes me the violent criminal he's already trying to say I am. I press my hands over my eyes. For the first time since I woke up in that gutter, the thing I know doesn't cover the thing in front of me. And I keep almost seeing the shape of what he's building, and then it slips, like a bond that won't close. There's a silence. And then from the corner, cold and ancient and unexpectedly not contemptuous, Ryujin speaks. You keep saying you do not know the rules of this game, the great spirit rumbles, uncoiling slightly. You are correct. You do not. But you speak as though such knowledge does not exist anywhere in the world, and that is the arrogance of the short-lived. I lower my hands. Meaning what? Meaning. Ryujin says, with the patience of something that measures time in centuries, that you mortals imagine the spirit world to be nothing but raw powers to be leashed and pointed at your little problems. Beasts of storm and stone. And most of us are. But not all. Its cold suns fix on me. The spirit realm has its own courts. Its own thrones and factions and long quiet wars fought entirely in words and debts and patience. It has ruled itself far longer than any mortal kingdom has existed. And where there are courts human, there are those who are born to untangle them. I go very still. You're telling me, I say slowly, that there are spirits who are tacticians, political minds, advisors. I am telling you, Ryujin says, that raw power is the least of what my realm contains, though it is all you humans ever bother to summon. You dragged me halfway across the veil a dozen times wanting a weapon. Not once did any of your line think to ask whether the spirits might have something rarer than a weapon. A pause, and something almost dry enters its ancient voice. You wish to fight a war of paper and whispers against a prince. There are those among us who have fought such wars for 1,000 years and grown bored of winning them. Summon one of those. Not a sword. A mind. I look at Kaori, who has come to the table, her eyes wide. Could you, I ask her, summon something like that? Kaori bites her lip. I've only ever summoned power, she says. Beasts, elements, Ryujin. I never even knew you could summon a mind. I wouldn't know how to reach one, or what terms to offer. She glances at Ryujin, and there's the old wound there, the careful distance between them that hasn't healed. And I'd need help. His help. I can't do it without him telling me where to reach. The Great Spirit's eyes slide to her, and the coldness in them is a thing I've watched for weeks, now the pride that will not forgive her line, the ally who serves me and merely tolerates her. For a moment I think it'll refuse, out of that old contempt. Then Ryujin says, grudgingly, I will tell you where to reach. That is all. The bargaining is yours, summoner. Do not fail at it as your ancestors failed. Its cold suns narrow on her. And do not mistake this for kindness. I do not help you. I am amused by your mortal's game, and I wish to see it played, nothing more. It's not warmth. It's barely even cooperation. But it's the first time it's offered Kaori anything, and I see her take the small cold gift like it's the most she's dared hope for. Tomorrow, I say. We reach for a mind. Tonight. I look around at the table, at the map I can't read, at the debts and the enemy and the whole impossible court, and I make a decision that isn't strategy at all. Tonight we stop. I don't plan the evening. That's the point of it. I just tell everyone to put the war down for one night, and we buy too much food from the market, proper food, roast and bread and the good expensive fruit Rina's never been allowed to buy for herself, and we haul it up to the flat roof of the townhouse where you can see out over the whole capital, and we eat under the open sky. And for a while, nobody talks about Kataru. Rina eats 3 people's share and tells a rambling, increasingly embellished version of the fortress rescue in which she personally scaled the wall with a wounded man on each shoulder, and Gunzo, who came to me a week ago with a dead man's eyes, actually corrects her, dry, there were 2 of them and you dropped one. And Rina throws a grape at him, and the 11 survivors he saved are down in the house below sleeping safe, and something in his ruined face has started very slowly to knit. Hataka talks about the watch and the levy, and after some whine about the year she spent ashamed of not asking questions about the Ryuci, and how helping empty those cages was the first time in a long time she's felt like the knight she meant to be when she took the oath. She says it plainly, no drama, and I understand she's telling me she's not following me because I detained well or fought well, but because I've given her back a version of herself she'd lost. Kaori is quiet as always, but it's a different quiet up here, not the held breath control of a woman carrying a stone, but something looser. She sits a little apart, and Ryujin, coiled small at the roof's edge, is coldly separate from her as ever, and I watch her watch the city lights and I know that wound is still open, and I don't have a fix for it, and I let it be, because not everything is mine to solve. And me, I sit with my back against the roof's low wall and I look out over Asteria, this city that arrested me 2 weeks and change ago as a nameless fraud in a stolen-looking coat, and something happens that I have no defense against. They know my name. Not my rank. Not a number on a table. In my old life I had 10 million players who knew Ichi, the tag at the top of a leaderboard, and not one of them knew Takumi Hirano, and I sat alone in an apartment with the curtains shut and gave my whole self to a name that could be and was deleted in an afternoon. I mattered to no one. I was famous and unknown at the same time, and when the number was gone I discovered there had been nothing underneath it. Up here on this roof, Rina is arguing with Gunzo about grapes, and Hataka is refilling Kaori's cup without being asked, and every one of them knows my face. Knows that I eat porridge wrong. Knows that I mutter numbers. Knows that I nearly died to a street thug on my first day and can't fight without a plan. They know the man, not the rank, and they're still here. I don't say any of this. It'd ruin the evening, and Rina would make it weird. But it lands in me quietly and completely. This is the thing I came here without knowing I wanted. Not to be number one. To be known by people whose knowing can't be erased with a line of red text, because there's no code to delete, only flesh and choice and a rooftop full of food. You've got a face on, Rina says, squinting at me across the roof. A weird one. Not the number mutter one. A soft one. Are you dying? I'm fine, I say. He's happy, Hataka says, not looking up from her cup, dry as ever. It looks strange on him because it's new. Rina considers this. Huh, she says, and throws me a grape, and I catch it, and that's the whole moment, and it's more than I've had in years. I let myself have the night. In the morning I put it away and pick the war back up, because the war doesn't stop just because I've learned I have something to lose if anything. That's exactly why I can't afford to lose the war. We do it in the quarry again, because a strange summoning deserves ground with nothing to break, and because it feels right to reach for a mind in the same bowl of stone where Kaori and I first reached for power. Ryujin tells her where to reach. That's all it does, coldly. Precisely a set of terms and directions in the old script that Kaori chalks into a new array, an array shaped not to compel but to invite, to send a summons not into the raw wild of storm and stone, but into the quiet ordered depths of the spirit realm's own courts. It's delicate work, and it takes all morning, and Ryujin corrects her twice, grudging, and each correction is the closest thing to teaching it's ever offered her. And then Kaori casts the invitation, and the quarry does not go cold, does not fill with pressure, does not roar with arriving power. Instead the air simply shifts, politely, the way a room changes when someone has quietly entered and is waiting to be noticed. And in the center of the array stands a small, unremarkable figure, a spirit no taller than a child, made of layered water over dark packed earth, plain-faced, dressed in nothing grand, with none of Ryujin's terrible majesty. It looks physically weak. It looks like it could be knocked over by a stiff wind. It looks like the least impressive thing Kaori has ever summoned. It looks around the quarry with mild, clear, extraordinarily intelligent eyes, and it takes in all at once. I can see it happen: Ryujin, and me, and Kaori, and the shape of the array, and the terms of the invitation, and something about the whole situation that the rest of us haven't said out loud. Ah, the small spirit says, in a quiet, precise voice. You're in trouble with a prince, you've collected a knight, a beast folk, a summoner at odds with a great spirit, a pardon bandit, and a rare charm book you've already spent once, and you've summoned me because for the first time in your short remarkable life you've met a problem you cannot punch, farm, or out-combo your way through. It tilts its head. Have I missed anything? The quarry is silent. I stare at it. Ryujin, at the rim, makes a low sound that might be a great spirit's version of "I told you so." How, I say the same word I've heard from Kaori, from Regulus, from a dozen shattered opponents, and now for the first time, coming out of my own mouth. You've been here for 4 seconds. I've been listening to the veil for 1,000 years, the spirit says mildly. Mortals think summoning is a door that opens all at once. It isn't. I heard you coming for some time. I heard the shape of your problem before I ever saw your face. It folds its small hands. And I have eyes where your kind never think to look for them, small spirits no one summoned and therefore no one notices, drifting through halls and counting rooms and palace corridors. You'd be amazed what a court says freely in front of a thing it believes is only a draft in the room. It regards me. My name is Mizwa. I'm not strong. I want to be clear about that immediately, so no one is disappointed. Ryujin here could crack this quarry in half. I could not lift that boulder. If you wanted a weapon, you've made a mistake. I don't want a weapon, I say. I want a mind that can see a court I can't. Mizwa's clear eyes settle on me, and something in them warms very slightly, the specific rare pleasure of an old intelligence that has spent 1,000 years being asked for the wrong thing, finally being asked for the right one. Well, it says. In that case, we may get along. It steps out of the array, small and unassuming, and looks up at me, and I have the distinct and unfamiliar sensation of being read, not the way Kataru appraises a piece, not the way the Duchess prices a debt, but the way a master reads a board. Show me everything, Mizwa says. The prince. The taxes. The bandits. The Duchess and her book. The little lonely prince you befriended. All of it, every thread, exactly as you know it. Leave nothing out because you think it's small. The small threads are always the ones tying the knot. It settles onto a stone as if preparing for a long and pleasant afternoon. You've been staring at a page you can't read, and drowning, and reaching for help you didn't know existed. That's over now. A small, precise smile. Let's find out what your prince is actually building. I suspect you're going to be very unhappy when you see it whole, but at least, for the first time, you'll be able to see it. I sit down across from it, and I begin, at last, to lay out the whole board, and for the first time since I woke up in this world, I'm not the smartest thing in the room. I've never been so relieved in my life. It takes Mizwa 2 days to explain to me how thoroughly I've misunderstood my own situation. We sit in the townhouse, the whole team around the table, and the small water and earth spirit lays out the board the way I once laid out a raid boss's mechanics, patient, precise, sparing nothing. And thread by thread, The tangle I couldn't read becomes a single terrible design. You've been treating these as separate problems, Miswa begins. The bandits. The taxes. The Duchess. The little prince. Kadaru's interest in you. You keep drawing lines between them because you assume they're different fights. It sets a dried bean on the table for each one, a little constellation of small round objects. They're not different fights. They're one fight, and it started years before you were born into this world, and it has a single author. It slides the beans together into a tight cluster. Understand what Kadaru actually is, Miswa says. Not a cruel prince. Cruelty is beneath him. Cruelty is inefficient. Kadaru is a man who understood very young a single fact about this kingdom that no one else in power will say out loud. The aristocracy rules over 100 commoners for every noble, and the only reason the 100 don't rise is that they have no one to unite them. No leader.
No symbol.
No proof that the crimes done to them are crimes. It taps the cluster of beans. So for years quietly, Kadaru has made it his life's work to ensure that no such leader, symbol, or proof is ever allowed to form. Not by mass slaughter that would create the very outrage he's preventing. By precision. He finds the person or group who could become a rallying point for the commoners, and he removes them, and he rewrites the story so that their removal looks like justice instead of murder. Gunzo has gone very still. The Ryuci, Miswa says gently to him. Righteous bandits who fed the poor and named the illegal taxes out loud. The single most dangerous thing in the kingdom, from Kadaru's view, commoners with a cause, a symbol, and proof of the crime. So he didn't just kill them. He inverted them. 200 heroes became 200 bandits. The proof they carried became a smokescreen. And the taxes they were exposing Kadaru didn't stop those. He absorbed them. Miswa slides one bean apart from the cluster. This is the part you never saw, Takumi, because you were looking at it as a crime to be exposed. It isn't just a crime. It's a revenue stream. The illegal taxes the Ryuci were fighting flow up through first-order officials into Kadaru's own coffers. He crushed the people exposing his own income, and called it a crackdown on the people who were stealing it. That's not one crime hiding another. That's the same crime, top to bottom. I feel the cold spread through me, because I can see it now, whole, and it's worse than I imagined. The taxes fund him. The bandit story buries the taxes. The massacre buries the bandit's testimony. And it's been working flawlessly for years, Miswa says, because every thread reinforces the others, and because no one who understood it survived to say so. It moves to the next bean. Now. The Duchess. The book, I say. The book was never really for you, Miswa says. Midori Kagayashi is not Kadaru's ally. She's a power broker who plays every faction against the others to keep herself indispensable. She gave you the charm book because she saw at the tournament exactly what Kadaru saw, a new piece that can't be bought, backed by a great spirit and a public the crowd loves. She wants you as her instrument in the coming struggle. The book is a hook. The moment she calls in the debt, she expects to point you wherever suits her. She's not the enemy. She's a third player, and if we're not careful she'll try to use the very move we make against Kadaru to advance herself. And Sora? I ask it carefully, because Sora is the one bean on the table that isn't strategy to me anymore. Miswa pauses. And when it speaks, its precise voice is, for the first time, almost gentle. This is the part I'm sorry to tell you, it says. Because I know he's become your friend, and I can see that means something to you that the others on this board never will. I brace. Kadaru's next move, the one he's been assembling since your tournament, isn't aimed at you, Miswa says. It's aimed through you, at his own brother. Think about what you did in that arena. You publicly refused to be owned, you befriended Sora in front of the whole court, and you made yourself the commoner's champion. From Kadaru's view, you've done something extraordinarily dangerous. You've become the unifying symbol he spent his life preventing, and you've attached yourself to the one member of the royal family who could give that symbol legitimacy. The champion of the commoners, allied to a prince. Miswa lets that sit. That is the exact configuration Kadaru cannot allow to exist. A leader for the commoners, plus a royal to make him legitimate, is a revolution with a crown on it. So he kills me, I say. No. Miswa shakes its small head. Killing you makes a martyr. A dead champion the crowd loves is more dangerous than a living one, and it would draw exactly the outrage he avoids. Kadaru is far more elegant than that. His plan is to let the two of you continue exactly as you are, growing more visibly allied, more beloved, and then, at the moment of maximum exposure, to reveal that Champion Takumi and Prince Sora are conspiring together in treason against the crown. A commoner hero and a jealous second prince, plotting to overthrow the king. Mizwa picks up Sora's bean and Takumi's bean and holds them together. He frames you both at once. You hang as a traitor, the commoner's symbol destroyed and disgraced instead of martyred. And Sora, his overshadowed expendable little brother, is executed or exiled as the royal ringleader, removing the one rival who could ever threaten Kataru's succession. 1 accusation. 2 threats gone. The commoner movement decapitated and discredited, and Kataru positioned as the loyal son who exposed a treason and saved the throne. The room is silent. He's been building this since the tournament, Mizwa finishes quietly. Every day you and Sora grow closer, you're building the case he'll use to hang you both. Your friendship isn't a defense against his plan. It is his plan. Rina's ears are flat. Hataka's jaw is a hard line. Gunzo looks like a man who's just learned the trap he escaped was smaller than the one still waiting. And Kaori has her hand over her mouth. How do you know all this? Hataka says, slow, wary. You were summoned days ago. I've been listening to the veil for 1,000 years, Mizwa says mildly. And I have eyes where your mortals never think to look for them, small spirits no one summoned and therefore no one notices, drifting through halls and counting rooms and palace corridors. You'd be amazed what a court says freely in front of a thing it believes is only a draft in the room. It folds its small hands. The design took me 2 days to read. It took Kataru years to build. I did not invent it. I merely opened my eyes in the places he assumed were empty. I sit with it. The cold, complete horror of it. Because Mizwa is right, and I can feel how right it is. The thing I did in the arena, the thing I was proudest of, refusing ownership and choosing a friend, was the exact move that armed the man I most needed to beat. How long, I ask? Until he moves? Weeks, perhaps. He'll want the case as fat as possible, and he'll want to trigger some manufactured evidence of the conspiracy, planted at the right moment. Mizwa sets the beans down. But he'll also move the instant he senses you understand the plan. Which means from now on, every day is a race, and secrecy is our only shield. Then tell me how to beat it, I say. You've read the whole board. What's the counter? Mizwa is quiet for a long moment. And then it tells me, and it's the single most terrifying thing anyone has said to me since I woke up in this world. Worse than death is real, worse than the alley, worse than the fortress. The counter, Mizwa says, is that you do the exact opposite of everything your instincts and your friends are going to scream at you to do. It looks around the table. Your instinct is to hide. To go quiet, to break off from Sora, to make yourselves small and hard to accuse until the storm passes. That's what a survivor does. That's what got you through the alley and the marsh and the fortress. It shakes its head. It would kill you. If you go quiet, you make Kataru's case for him secret meetings, a champion suddenly hiding, a prince withdrawing. That's exactly what a conspiracy looks like. Hide and you hang. Then what? You do the reverse. You get louder. More visible. Impossibly, undeniably public, but you shift what you're publicly attached to. Mizwa's clear eyes fix on me. Right now you're publicly attached to Prince Sora. That's the vulnerability. Kataru can frame a champion and prince alliance as treason. So we sever that association's nature without severing the friendship. From this moment, publicly, you attach yourself not to a prince but to the king. And to the law itself. I stare at it. The king has done nothing about any of this. He may not even know. Almost certainly he doesn't, Mizwa agrees. The genius of Kataru's design is that the king's own son is robbing his people and burying the evidence, and the king sleeps soundly believing his kingdom is orderly. That's your opening. You become, publicly and loudly, the king's man, the champion who serves the crown and the law above any prince, who trusts the king to do justice when shown the truth. You make yourself so visibly loyal to the throne itself that Kataru cannot frame you as a traitor to it without the accusation being absurd on its face. A man who has spent weeks declaring his loyalty to the king, cheered by the whole city for it, cannot credibly be hanged as the king's enemy. You make yourself too public, too loyal, and too beloved to eliminate quietly a figure Kataru can only remove by open scandal, in the light, where his own machine falls apart. That's insane, Hataka says flatly. You want him to walk toward the throne. Into the one place Kataru is strongest. One misstep in front of the king and the nobility, and it's not just Takumi who hangs, it's all of us, for treason, for the rescue, for harboring the Ryusai, for everything. Yes, Mizwa says simply. That's the risk. It's enormous. I won't pretend otherwise. If we're a step slow or a word wrong, or if the king is more Kataru's man than his own, we all die, and die branded exactly as Kataru wants. It doesn't soften it. But hiding is certain death dressed as safety. This is uncertain death dressed as danger. Those are the only two doors, and behind one of them is also the only door that leads to winning, not surviving. Winning. Clearing the Ryusai. Stopping the taxes. Ending Kataru. Freeing Sora. All of it lives behind the loud door. None of it lives behind the quiet one. The table erupts. Rina wants to know why we can't just leave, take the 11 survivors and the team and vanish, live free somewhere Kataru isn't. Gunzo grimly says there's nowhere Kataru isn't, and anyway he didn't crawl out of that fortress to run. Hataka argues the risk cold and hard, laying out every way it fails. Kaori is quiet, watching me. Ryujin, coiled at the wall, listens to the mortals argue with a detached interest of something that has watched 1,000 such councils and seen most of them choose wrongly. And I sit at the head of the table and I feel for the first time the full weight of the thing I learned on the rooftop. In my old life, a risk like this cost me nothing real. If Ichi died, Ichi respawned. If a raid wiped, we ran it again. I gambled everything 1,000 times because everything was a number that reset. That's why I was fearless. That's why I was number one. I had nothing to actually lose, so I could bet it all, always. I don't have nothing anymore. I have a knight who gave me back her honor. A beastfolk girl who finally found a table where no one's waiting for her to fail. A summoner carrying a wound I helped make. A broken commander I gave a reason to be a free man. A prince who called me the first honest thing in his life. And a small clever spirit who's just told me the only way to save all of them is to walk every single one of us toward the exact place we're most likely to die. The fearlessness that made me number one is gone, because it was built on having nothing. And what's replaced it is so much harder. I have to be brave while having everything to lose. Enough, I say, and the table quiets. I look at Mizwa. If we do this, if we go loud, walk toward the king, we can't do it on a lie. The whole strength of the play is that it's true. I'm actually loyal to the crown and the law, not to any prince, and the case against Kataru is actually real. That's the armor. If any of it's fabricated, he'll find the seam and hang us with it. Correct, Mizwa says, and I see the approval in its clear eyes. You understand it already. This is not a trick. It's the truth, deployed at the exact moment and place where truth becomes a weapon. That's why it can beat him. He's spent his whole life winning with lies. He has no defense against a man who wins with the truth publicly, in front of the king, because he's never once had to. Then we need the truth to be undeniable, I say. Not a story. Not testimony a prince can dismiss. Proof. Documents. The tax flow in ink, with names, the actual ledgers showing the illegal taxes going up through the first-order officials into Kataru's coffers. Something the king cannot wave away in front of the whole nobility because it's written in Kataru's own machine's hand. Gunzo lifts his head. The account records, he says slowly. The first-order house that ran the holding, the one we hit, the Eastern Estates. They kept the ledgers. Every house in Kataru's chain does. You can't move that much coin without recording it. The proof exists. It's in a vault in a first-order estate. His hollow eyes burn. I know those estates. I scouted them for a year. I could find the ledger vault. The room goes still again, a different stillness. The stillness of a plan being born. Mizwa looks at Gunzo, then at me, and something like satisfaction settles over its small, unremarkable face. There it is, it says quietly. You asked me for a counter. That's the whole of it, laid out. 1. We go loud and attach ourselves publicly to the king and the law, making Takumi too visible and too loyal to eliminate in the dark. 2. Gunzo leads us to the ledgers, the undeniable proof, in Kataru's own accounts, of the illegal taxes and the massacre as smokescreen. 3. We get Takumi a personal audience with the king, using his fame and the crowd's love to force a door no commoner should be able to open. And 4. In front of the assembled nobility, Takumi lays out the entire design, with proof in hand, and forces the king to act on documented crimes he cannot ignore without shaming the crown before its own court. It folds its hands. Kataru will see it coming eventually, and try to accelerate to spring his treason frame before we reach the king. So it becomes a race. Whoever gets to the king first, wins. He with a lie about us. Or us with the truth about him. I look around the table at every face I've collected, every life that is now, terrifyingly, tangled with mine. This gets us all killed if it's wrong. I say honest, because they deserve it. I need to know you're choosing it. Not following me into it. Choosing it. Anyone who wants out, there's no shame, and I'll help you disappear tonight. Nobody moves toward the door. Rina, ears trembling but up, says, "You gave me a place. I'm not running from the one place that ever wanted me." Hataka, I spent a year ashamed of not asking questions. I'm not spending the rest of my life ashamed of not answering one. Kaori quietly, "You fixed the thing that was breaking me. Let me help fix this." Gunzo just draws his cloth-wrapped sword and lays it on the table. And Ryujin, from the wall, ancient and cold and for the first time with something almost like respect, a mortal who chooses to win a war with paper when he holds a dragon who could burn the palace to the ground. Novel. Suspicious. I will stay to see whether it works, if only to mock you thoroughly when it does not. I look last at Mizwa. You realize you just joined a plan that could get your summoner killed. You could go home. This isn't your war. Mizwa considers this, small and calm. In 1,000 years of untangling courts. It says, I have never once watched a mortal choose the harder truth over the easier lie when he held the power to simply burn his enemy down. I find I would very much like to see how it ends. Its clear eyes glint. Besides, rarely does anyone give me a not this beautiful. I intend to enjoy it. I look down at the ledgers we don't have yet, in a vault we haven't reached, on the road to a king we haven't met, with a prince already building the noose. The race has started. Then we start with the ledgers, I say. Gunzo, draw me the vault. The vault is not in the fortress we already hit. Gunzo makes that clear the first night, drawing in the dirt again the way he drew the cells. Kataru's not a fool. After we emptied the eastern holding, he'll have doubled the guard there and moved anything sensitive. He sketches a different shape, a townhouse estate in the capital itself, in the First Order district, close enough to the palace that a scream would carry to a prince's window. The ledgers won't be in a border fortress. Money records live where the money men live. Lord Kasran First Order runs Kataru's tax chain, keeps the books. His estate. Here in the city. He stabs the dirt. Which is worse. A border fortress we could ring with a dragon and terrify. This is the heart of the enemy's ground. We make one loud sound here and the whole First Order district wakes. Mizwa studies the sketch for a long while. He's right, it says finally. This cannot be a rescue, like the fortress. That was a smash and run. You could afford noise because you were leaving with people, and people are loud, and once you had them you only needed to be gone. This is the opposite. If we take the ledgers and Kasran knows they're taken, the entire plan collapses. Kataru learns we have the proof, accelerates his frame, and reaches the king before we do. Its clear eyes move over the team. Which means this operation has one rule that overrides every other. No one can ever know we were here. Not a broken lock. Not a missing guard. Not a page out of place. We don't steal the ledgers. It pauses. We copy them, and we leave the originals exactly where they sat, and Kasran goes to bed tonight certain his secrets are safe. That's the only version of this that wins. The team is quiet, absorbing it. Copy them, Kaori says slowly. Ledgers. Account books. That's hours of work, inside the vault, in the dark, without being caught. Then we buy the hours. I say, and I feel the old thing settle over me, not the raider's fearlessness, that's gone, but the thing that replaced it, the careful cold clarity of a man who has everything to lose and therefore cannot afford a single wasted move. Mizwa scripts it to the minute. Everyone runs their piece and only their piece. We don't improvise. We don't get greedy. We get in, we get the pages, we get out, and Kasran never knows we breathed his air. Mizwa looks at me with something close to fondness. Now you're thinking like a spirit of the courts, it says. Slowly. Invisibly. Winning the war before anyone knows there was a battle. It gathers the team's attention. Here is how it goes. And listen closely because unlike the fortress, there is no room in this for a wall-shaking dragon or a beastfolk carrying wounded on her shoulders. This is a heist of paper. It lives or dies on timing, and timing lives or dies on discipline. Miswa builds the operation the way I once built a raid, except it thinks in a dimension I never mastered, not just what happens but what everyone believes is happening. It doesn't plan around the guards. It plans around the guards' assumptions what they expect a normal night to look like, so that we can give them one. Kasran's estate runs on routine, Miswa explains, laying out the timing on the table with beans and string. A clerk works late in the counting room 3 nights a week. Tonight is one. The night watch does rounds on a fixed pattern. I've had Gunzo and Rena observe it for 3 nights and it does not vary, because men who feel safe grow lazy, and Kasran feels very safe. The vault sits behind the counting room, and the vault key stays on the corrupt clerk's belt, because Kasran trusts him and trust is a door. It traces the string. We do not break in. We do not fight in. We time our way in through the seams of their own routine, take the counting room during the window when the clerk steps out for his nightly meal. He leaves for a quarter hour, every night, like clockwork, copy what we can, and be gone before he returns to a room exactly as he left it. A quarter hour isn't enough to copy years of ledgers, Hataka points out.
No, Miswa agrees.
Which is why we don't copy years. We copy the specific pages, the tax flow entries that connect the illegal levies to the first-order officials to Kataru's coffers. Gunzo knows the names to look for. He watched these taxes bleed his people for years. We take only what proves the crime, and we take it fast, and here. It sets down the Grey Book, the Duchess's charm book, is the one place to Kumi, where we use her gift. Once. On the clerk. Not to break the plan open, but to make a quarter hour into a half hour. I look at the book. How? The clerk's meal is his own routine, but routines can be gently extended. When he steps out, you'll be positioned to pass him, once in a corridor, as a servant he half recognizes and doesn't question. Miswa pauses. And understand the suggestion itself does part of that work. Not only you're in no hurry tonight, but also this face you've seen before. Thin, cheap, forgotten by morning. He won't wonder who you are, because the magic tells him not to. A single nudge does both. He lingers over his meal. He takes his time. And the quarter hour we can't work with becomes a half hour we can. Miswa's clear eyes hold mine. That is the entire use of the Duchess's magic in this plan. One clerk. One suggestion. Not to seize anyone's will, not to turn a man against his master, not to become the instrument she gave it to you to be. A thumb on a scale, to buy 15 minutes. That's all. I want you to understand exactly how small a use it is, because I know you've promised yourself something about that book, and I'm keeping you to it. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Because that was the trap. All along the Duchess handed me a weapon that would only truly pay off if I used it big, used it to bend a will, made myself the kind of person who solves problems by overriding other people's minds. That's the debt she was really building, not the favor she'd call in, but the man I'd become by using her gift the way it wanted to be used. And Miswa, in one small plan, has found the way to use the tool without swallowing the hook of use, so minor it can't become a habit, so bounded it can't become who I am. One clerk, I say. One nudge. 15 minutes. One clerk, Miswa agrees. And then you put the book away, and when the Duchess comes to collect, you will have used her gift so trivially that there's nothing for her to own. You'll have taken the tool and refused the leash. Same as you did with a dragon. Its small mouth curves. You're becoming rather good at that. We move 3 nights later, and it is nothing like the fortress. The fortress was terror and speed, a dragon over the wall, a beast folk carrying the wounded, the roar of things breaking. This is silence and patience and the slow crawl of a plan measured to the minute, and it is, in its way, far more frightening, because at the fortress the enemy learning we were there only meant to fight. Here it means everything ends. Kaori and Ryujin go first, as before, but the Great Spirit works small tonight, not a wall-sized shadow but a precise pool of darkness laid over a single garden gate, and a silence ward over one specific stretch of path, exactly where and only where we need it. Ryujin, who could crack the estate in half, instead makes itself a scalpel, and I catch the flicker in its ancient eyes as it does a Great Spirit ruler unaccustomed to restraint, discovering that restraint is its own kind of power. It's using less of itself than it ever has for a human, and something about doing so precisely, for a plan built on not being seen, seems to interest it. Rina and Hataka go in through Ryujin's dark, but they don't climb walls tonight and they don't carry anyone. They take up covering positions, Rina in the deep shadow of the counting room's outer eaves, Hataka at the corridor's far end, and their job, Mizwa made brutally clear, is to do nothing unless the whole plan is already dead. You are not the operation, Mizwa told them. You are the last resort. If you have to move, we have already failed, and your only task is to get everyone out alive so we can try again. Success tonight looks like the two of you standing perfectly still in the dark for half an hour and then walking home. I know that's the hardest thing I could ask of a warrior. Do it anyway. Gunzo and I go for the counting room, because Gunzo knows the names and I have the hands to copy fast, and because I've spent 100 nights of my old life running the exact same kind of precision execution, hitting marks to the fraction of a second, except tonight the mark is a corrupt clerk's dinner and the boss is a room full of paper. Mizwa stays outside the wall with Kaori, holding the whole thing in its head, every timing, every position, every window, and feeds us the count through the summoner's bond, a small clear voice in the dark saying now, saying wait, saying he's moving. The clerk steps out for his meal exactly on schedule, because men who feel safe are creatures of habit, and habit is the seam Mizwa dressed the whole plan to slip through. I pass him in the corridor. I've put on a servant's plain coat, and I keep my head down and my pace unhurried, just another late-working household man, and as we pass I open the gray book in my mind and I lay the thinnest possible suggestion across the surface of his attention: not stop, not obey, not any of the things the Duchess's gift wants to be used for. Just, you're in no hurry tonight, and folded under it, this face you've seen before. A feather on a scale already tipping toward a warm meal. He doesn't so much as glance at me, or rather he glances, and the glance slides off, because the magic has told him there's nothing here worth wondering about, and he heads to his dinner with the unhurried ease of a man with all the time in the world. I put the book away. And I mean away. I feel the small greedy pull of it, the whisper that says you could do so much more, and I close it and I don't listen, because Mizwa was right about what the real trap was, and I refuse it the same way I refused a prince and a dragon. He's slowing, Mizwa's voice says in my head, satisfied. Half an hour. Go. Gunzo and I are into the counting room in seconds. The next half hour is the longest of my life, and almost nothing happens in it, which is exactly the point. The vault key is where Mizwa said on the clerk's spare belt, hung by the counting room door, because a man who feels safe doesn't carry his second key to dinner. Gunzo has the vault open in a breath. Inside, ledgers, years of them, shelf on shelf, more than we could ever take. Names, I whisper. Fust. And Gunzo, this broken man who watched these exact taxes starve his people, moves through the shelves with terrible sure knowledge, pulling the volumes by the years and the districts he knows in his bones, and we lay them open on the counting desk, and I copy fast, precise, a scribe's hand I trained in another life across 1,000 hours of raid logs and guild records. Translating a system into ink faster than any native scribe because I've spent my life recording systems. Gunzo reads me the entries, the illegal levy here, the first order official who collected it, the sum, the date, and line after line, year after year, the coin flowing up the chain, up and up, to a single set of coffers at the top. Kataroos. It's all here. In ink. In Kasrin's own careful hand. The illegal taxes, the officials who moved them, the destination. And in a separate ledger Gunzo finds with shaking hands, the disbursements including a large discrete payment dated to the season of the Ryuci massacre, recorded blandly as pacification, Eastern Districts. The accounting term for buying and hiding 200 murders. There Gunzo breathes, and his voice is not quite steady. That's it. That's the price he put on them. Pacification. 200 people. He wrote them down as a line item. Copy it exactly, I say. The wording. The date. The sum. All of it. That line hangs him more than all the rest. The king can argue about taxes, but pacification, Eastern Districts. In the same ledger as a massacre is the crime and the cover-up in one hand. I copy it, and my own hand is steady, because this is the part I'm built for, and because a man with everything to lose does not let his hand shake over the one page that saves everyone he loves. We copy for 26 minutes by Mizwa's count. We take the pages that prove the crime and nothing more. And then, exactly as planned, we put every original ledger back on its shelf in its exact place, close the vault, return the key to its belt, and leave the counting room precisely as we found it, not a page turned, not a lock scratched, not a mote of dust disturbed that a careful clerk would notice. He's finishing his meal, Miswa's voice says. 2 minutes. Out. Now. We go back through the corridor, back through Ryujin's small precise dark, out through the garden gate that closes silent behind us, and Rina and Hataka fall in from their positions having done, magnificently, nothing at all, and we are 3 streets away and walking like ordinary people through an ordinary night before the corrupt clerk returns to a counting room that will tell him, for the rest of his life, that nothing ever happened there.
No alarm.
No fight. No body. No missing page. Kasran will sleep tonight, certain his secrets are safe. And in my coat, against my chest, are the copied pages that end the first prince of the kingdom. We don't celebrate. Miswa forbids it. The operation isn't over until we're all home and no one has followed us. And we take 3 separate routes back to the townhouse and arrive over the course of an hour, and only when the last of us is inside with the door barred does the spirit finally allow the breath the whole team has been holding. Clean, Miswa says, and there is real satisfaction in its quiet voice, the pleasure of a 1,000-year-old mind that has just watched a plan execute exactly as designed. Perfectly clean. Kasran doesn't know. Which means Kadaru doesn't know. Which means its clear eyes find mine, we're ahead in the race. For now. I spread the copied pages on the table, and the team crowds around, and there it is, the whole machine in ink, the taxes, the names, the flow, and the single terrible line, pacification, Eastern Districts, that turns 200 murdered heroes back from bandits into the crime that hangs a prince. Gunzo stands over it a long time. Then he reaches out and touches the copied date of the massacre payment with one finger, gently, the way you'd touch a grave. A year, he says quietly. A year I've carried them as bandits in the world's eyes. And it was here the whole time. A line in a book. His voice roughens. You gave me this. When I couldn't even see a way to save the living, you found me the proof to clear the dead. We found it, I say. You knew the names. Without you these pages are gibberish. This is yours as much as anyone's. Hataka is reading the tax entries with a night's cold fury. This is enough, she says. This is documented, dated, in the hand of Kadaru's own taxmaster, in his own vault. A crime the king cannot wave away. She looks up. If we can get it in front of the king. In front of the nobility, where he can't quietly bury it. That's the next race, Miswa says. And then its small face grows grave. And here is where I have to tell you the thing I've been dreading since we planned this. Because we've won a clean victory tonight, but there's a shadow on it. The room stills. We were clean, Miswa says. Kasran doesn't know we took the pages. But Kadaru is not Kasran. He is patient and paranoid, and he has spent his life sensing exactly the kind of movement we've been making, a champion going quiet on the recruitment offers, a team growing careful, Gunzo's face resurfacing after the fortress. He doesn't need to know about tonight to feel the tide turning against him. Its clear eyes move across us. I've had watchers of my own small spirits unseen in the palace, the same ones I told you of, the ones no one summoned and therefore no one notices, and they tell me Kadaru has begun to move. He's summoned the officials who could testify against him and started scattering them. And it pauses, and I feel the cold return. He has requested a private audience with the king. Soon. Within days. He's springing the frame, I say. The treason accusation. Against me and Sora. Before we reach the king with this. He's accelerating, Miswa confirms. He doesn't yet know we have the ledgers. But he can feel that his window to destroy you is closing, and he's decided to close it first to get to the king with his lie before you get there with the truth. It draws itself up, small and unremarkable and utterly certain. Which means the race just became a sprint. He has requested an audience. So we don't request one. Its clear eyes fix on me. We take one. You are the champion the whole city loves. You are going to use every ounce of that fame right now, publicly, undeniably, to force your way into that throne room before Kadaru can whisper his lie into the king's ear. You are going to walk into the one place a commoner should never be able to enter, in front of the entire nobility, and you are going to lay this on the king's own table. I look down at the pages that hang a prince. I look up at the faces of everyone I've collected, everyone I now, terrifyingly, have to keep alive. Then let's go meet the king, I say, before his son can tell him I'm a traitor. You cannot request an audience with the king. A commoner can wait a year for one and die waiting. So Miswa doesn't request. Miswa builds a wave, and rides me in on it. Kadaru's strength is the shadow, it explains the night before, laying out the last operation of all. Everything he's ever done, he's done quietly: the massacre, the taxes, the frame he's about to spring. His whole machine runs on things not being seen. So we do not fight him in the shadow, where he's spent his life winning. We drag the entire matter into the brightest possible light, in front of the largest possible crowd, at the one moment even a king cannot look away. Its clear eyes glint. The court holds a public petition day once a season, the day the king sits in open session, and any noble may bring a matter before the throne, before the assembled aristocracy. It is theater mostly. Grievances settled, honors granted, the crown seen to be just. It is also the one day the throne room doors are open and the whole court is watching. It taps the table. It is in 3 days. And the champion the entire city loves is going to arrive at those open doors with the common folk at his back, and the king is going to find it very much easier to hear him than to have him turned away in front of them all. Kadaru requested his own audience, Hataka points out. Days ago. Private. Won't he reach the king first? That's the elegant part, Miswa says. Kadaru's audience is set for the day after petition day. The king won't break the order of his sessions even for his own son, and a private matter waits its turn behind the public one. That's our gap. 1 day. Kadaru means to whisper his lie into the king's ear the morning after petition day. We simply arrive the morning before, and speak the truth out loud in front of everyone, while his mouth is still shut. Its clear eyes move over us. 1 day. That's the whole of the race. Don't waste an hour of it. The crowd, Hataka says slowly. You're going to bring the crowd. I'm going to let the crowd bring themselves, Miswa corrects. Takumi announces publicly that he will petition the king on petition day, on behalf of the commoners, on a matter of justice. That's all. He doesn't need to say what. The champion who refused to be owned, marching to the throne for the common folk, they'll come on their own, in their thousands, because it's the story they've been waiting to see since the tournament. And a king who turns away his people's beloved champion, on the day of open justice, in front of all of them and the entire nobility, that king undermines the very thing petition day exists to perform. He has to hear you. Kadaru can whisper all he likes tomorrow. He cannot whisper over a crowd today. I look at the plan, whole, and I understand its terrible elegance. Kadaru wanted to accuse me of treason against the crown in a quiet room. Miswa's answer is to make me so publicly, loudly, undeniably the crown's loyal servant, the champion appealing to the king's own justice, that the accusation becomes absurd before it's ever spoken. You cannot frame as a traitor a man the whole city just watched march to serve the king. And when I'm in the room, I ask. When you're in the room, Miswa says, you don't accuse. You don't demand. You serve. You lay the proof before the king as a loyal subject bringing his sovereign a crime committed in his name without his knowledge. You give the king the truth and the chance to be the just king he performs on petition day. And you make it impossible for him to refuse that role in front of his own court. It pauses. Kadaru will be there. He'll have to be its petition day. The whole royal family attends. He'll see it coming the moment you begin, and he'll fight. He is brilliant and he is cornered, which makes him most dangerous of all. He'll deny, he'll charm, he'll counteraccuse, he'll spring whatever piece of his frame he's already built. You have to be ready for every move before he makes it. Then walk me through his moves, I say. Every one. Before he makes them. And Miswa does. We spend 2 days doing nothing but this, the spirit playing Kadaru, throwing every counter a cornered prince could throw, and me and Miswa answering each one, until I know the shape of the coming fight the way I once knew a raid boss's every phase. It's the same discipline that beat Regulus, that beat Sora, that beat the marsh, know the enemy's rotation before he casts it. Except this enemy's spells are words, and the arena is a throne room, and if I miss a beat we don't wipe and respawn, we hang. I send Sora a message the night before. Not the whole plan, Miswa forbids it. Too dangerous, too many ears. Just 3 words, hand-delivered by Gunzo, trust me tomorrow. Because the cruelest part of Kadaru's design is that Sora is the co-defendant in a frame he doesn't know exists, and tomorrow I'm going to detonate the whole thing in front of him with no warning, and I need my friend to hold still and trust the man who once beat him and protected him in the same breath, even when it looks, for a few terrifying minutes, like I might be about to destroy him too. I don't know if he'll trust me. That's the one variable Miswa can't script. It comes down to whether a lonely prince believes the one honest man in his life. Petition day. I don't march at the head of the crowd. Miswa is precise about it. You are not leading a mob. You are a loyal subject the people happen to love. So I simply walk to the palace in my repaired coat with a champion's mark with my team around me, and the crowd assembles itself, the way water finds its level, first 100, then 1,000, then thousands, maybe 10,000. No one counted the whole common city turning out to watch their champion go to the king, until the great square before the palace is a sea of them, loud, joyful, chanting both my names. And the king's own guards look at that sea and understand exactly what Miswa understood. This door cannot be closed today. The doors open. I'm summoned in a champion petitioning the crown on petition day, at the head of thousands of voices, is a thing the theater of the day requires be heard. The throne room is vast and gold and full, the entire assembled nobility, ranked and watching, and at the far end on the high seat the king, older than I expected, tired-eyed, a man who has performed justice so long he may have forgotten what it feels like to do it. And below him, arrayed with the royal family, the two princes. Sora, who catches my eye and holds it, tense, trusting, terrified, holding still because I asked him to. And Kadaru. I see the exact instant Kadaru understands. He's charming and composed and utterly at ease, and then his eyes find the pages in my hand and Gunzo at my shoulder and the shape of what's about to happen, and for one flicker gone almost before it forms a cornered thing looks out through the first prince's handsome face. Then the charm slams back down. He's already recalculating. He's brilliant. He's the most dangerous he's ever been. I bow to the king. Deep, correct, the bow of a loyal subject. Your Majesty, I say, and I pitch it to Carrie, because the whole court is my audience and so, through the open doors, is the crowd. I am the one they call the Marsh Mage, the champion of your tournament. I've come on petition day, as any subject may, to bring my sovereign a matter of justice, a crime committed in your name, without your knowledge, against your own people. I bring it to you because I believe you are a just king, and because a just king would want to know. It's the frame Miswa built, and I feel at work I've made myself, in one sentence, the loyal subject and the king the hero of the story, and there is no version of this where refusing me doesn't make the king the villain of his own court. The king leans forward, tired eyes sharpening. Speak then, champion. What crime? And I lay it out. I don't rush it. I build it the way Miswa taught me, thread by thread, so the whole court follows every step. The REUCI, not bandits, but the people who fed the poor and named an illegal tax out loud. Their destruction, not a crackdown, but a massacre to silence witnesses. The taxes themselves, unauthorized, illegal, extracted from the common people, flowing up through first-order officials. And then, holding up the copied pages, in a hand steady because a man with everything to lose does not let his hand shake at the moment that saves everyone he loves. The proof, Your Majesty. The account records of Lord Kasran, First Order, who keeps these books. Copied from his own vault. The illegal levies, the officials who collected them, and the destination of the coin, every silver, up the chain, into a single set of coffers. I let it hang. And one line, above all. A disbursement, dated to the season the REUCI were destroyed, recorded in Kasran's own hand as. I read it, and the words drop into the silence like stones into a well. Pacification, Eastern Districts. 200 of Your Majesty's subjects. Written down as a line item in a ledger. Murdered to hide a theft committed in your name. The court erupts. The king's face has gone from tired to terrible. And Kadaru makes his first move, exactly as Miswa predicted. Your Majesty. His voice cuts through the noise, smooth, wounded, reasonable. This is theater. A commoner with a mob at the gates, brandishing copies, father, not originals, easily forged, accusing the crown itself. Ask him the true question. Who benefits from turning the people against their own princes? Ask him about the company he keeps. His eyes turn, cold and precise, on Sora. Ask him about my brother. A champion who refused every honest patron, then attached himself to the second prince, the one prince with a grievance against his own succession. A commoner hero and a jealous prince, allied, arriving together to accuse the crown on the day the mob is watching. He spreads his hands, sorrowful. I did not want to say this. I have prepared, with a heavy heart, evidence of a conspiracy between them against Your Majesty's throne. This petition is the treason's opening move. They mean to use the people to pull down the crown, and place my brother upon it. There it is. The frame, sprung champion and prince, conspiring treason, exactly the design Miswa laid bare in the townhouse. And I watch Sora go white, watch him understand for the first time that his own brother has built a noose for him, watch the terror of a man who trusted me hold, barely, by a thread. The court hangs. It could tip either way. Kadaru is good, he's turned my greatest strength, my friendship with Sora, into the rope. But I knew this move was coming, because Miswa knew, because we spent 2 days on exactly this, and I answer without a heartbeat's hesitation, because hesitation is what a guilty man shows. Prince Kadaru says these are copies, easily forged. I turn to the king. Then send for the originals. Now tonight, your majesty's own men, to Lord Kasran's vault. If my copies are false, they won't match, and I'll hang for the forgery. I'll accept that sentence in front of this whole court. But if they match, I let it hang, then the crime is real in Kasran's own hand, and no accusation about who I keep company with can unwrite it. A forged copy fears the original. Send for it. Kadaru can't object. Objecting to producing the real ledger is confession. He has to let it stand, and the king, tired eyes hard now, signals his guard, and men are dispatched to Kasran's vault, and I've just neutralized his first move by welcoming the very test he hoped to avoid. And as for the conspiracy, I go on before he can regroup, and now I address the whole court. Prince Kadaru says I allied with Prince Sora against the crown. Let me tell you exactly what happened between me and Prince Sora, since he's raised it. In the arena, Prince Sora offered me his patronage honestly, to my face, which I said then and say now is more honorable than most powerful men bother to be. And I refused him. Publicly. In front of thousands of witnesses who are standing in the square outside these doors right now and will remember it. I refuse to belong to any prince including Sora. I meet Kadaru's eyes. A conspirator does not publicly refuse his co-conspirator's ownership in front of the whole city. You've built a treason between me and a prince, I declined. Ask the crowd outside. They watched me say no to him. It lands. I watch it land across the court because it's true, documented by thousands of memories, and Kadaru's frame was built on the opposite assumption, on us being secretly allied, and I've just proven in front of everyone that our one public interaction was me refusing him. The frame has a hole in it the size of the arena. Kadaru recalculates fast, and throws his next piece, the manufactured evidence, letters, some fabricated proof of secret meetings, and this too Miswa anticipated, and I meet it, letters between me and Prince Sora? Produce them, and let this court examine the hand, the seals, the dates against my movements, every one of which is public, because I've been the most watched man in this city since the tournament, my whereabouts known to thousands every single day. A forger who plants secret meetings didn't account for a defendant with no private life. Test them the same as the ledgers. The truth doesn't fear examination. Only the lie does. Move by move, it goes exactly as we rehearsed. Kadaru is brilliant and cornered, and every counter he throws I've already seen thrown across a townhouse table by a 1,000-year-old mind wearing his face, and every counter I turn back not by cleverness but by invitation. Test the ledgers, test the letters, ask the crowd, examine everything, because the strength of the truth is that it welcomes the light Kadaru has spent his whole life avoiding. He fights the way he's always fought, in shadow and insinuation, and I keep dragging every blow into the sun, and in the sun his weapons are made of smoke. And then the guards return. Faster than anyone expected. Kasran's estate is close, in the First Order district, and the king sent riders. They carry the originals. A royal order opens any vault in the kingdom, and Kasran handed over the key before the guard had finished speaking. And in the terrible silence of the whole assembled court, the king's own clerk lays my copies beside Kasran's ledgers and compares them, page by page, line by line, and reads out in a voice that shakes, "They match, your majesty." Every entry. Including, he swallows, pacification, eastern districts. In Lord Kasran's hand. The throne room detonates. And in that moment the proof becomes undeniable in the light, in front of the entire nobility, exactly as Miswa designed. Kadaru makes his last move, the desperate one, and it's the only one we couldn't fully script, because it isn't a word. He goes for the exit, and for the frame's final piece I see him signal, a hand sign to men positioned at the doors, an attempt to turn the petition day crowd into the treasonous uprising. Of his story, to make the crowd itself the proof that this was a coup, to salvage catastrophe by drowning it in chaos. But I've got a spirit of the courts who spent 1,000 years watching cornered men reach for exactly this, and I've got a great spirit ruler who has learned, these past weeks, the power of restraint. And Ryujin's shadow, small and precise, falls across only the doors, across only Kataru's planted men. Not a paralysis, but the same terror that scattered 30 guards at the fortress, so that they freeze where they stand, unable to make themselves step toward the king. And Kataru's last move dies in the dark before it can begin. The king rises from his throne. Enough. His voice fills the room, and it is not the tired voice of a man performing justice. It is the voice of a king who has just been shown in his own hands writing, in front of his own court, that his son has robbed his people and murdered 200 of them to hide it. Kataru. Just the name. And in it, everything. Kataru, cornered, exposed, the shadow torn off every one of his schemes at once. In front of the entire aristocracy, the man who has outmaneuvered everyone in the kingdom his whole life looks at me across the golden room, and I watch the recalculation finally fail. There is no move left. Everyone has been dragged into the light, and in the light he has nothing. It's the face slap the whole kingdom has been building toward without knowing it. The prince who plays everyone, outplayed publicly, in front of the entire court, by a level 1 nobody with a fistful of paper. I don't gloat. Miswa told me not to, and I don't want to. I've learned that winning isn't the leaderboard. I just meet Kataru's eyes level, and say quietly enough that only the front of the court hears. You spent your whole life winning with lies. You never learned how to fight a man who wins with the truth. Because you never once had to. And I turn to the king and bow again, the loyal subject who has brought his sovereign a crime, and leave the judgment where it belongs with the crown, in the light, before its own court, exactly where Kataru can never reach it. The king looks down at me, and at the ledgers, and at his son, and I see the terrible weight of what he must do settle onto him. Beside me, at the edge of the throng, Sora is staring at me, white, shaking, alive, free, a man who trusted the one honest person in his life through the most terrifying minutes of it and was not betrayed. Behind me, through the open doors, the crowd is still chanting, not knowing yet what's happened, only that their champion walked in to serve the king and has not walked out. I hold the king's gaze, and I wait for justice not mine to give, but mine finally to have earned. The king does not execute his son. I understand why, even as part of me wishes he would. A public execution of a first prince, Miswa explains to me afterward, would tear the kingdom in half the nobility owe Kataru debts and favors, and a king who beheads his heir in front of the court invites a war of succession. He'll do the thing that ends Kataru without ending the kingdom. And that is exactly what the king does. In the same session, before the assembled nobility who watched the ledgers matched, he strips Kataru of his first-order command, of his authority over the tax chain, of his place in the line of succession, and orders him confined under guard to a remote estate for the rest of his days, a prince erased not by the axe but by irrelevance, which for a man like Kataru is the crueler sentence. He will live out his life in comfortable custody, watching a kingdom he schemed to rule forget his name. They take him from the throne room, and he does not rage, and he does not plead. He simply looks at me once as the guards lead him past, not with hatred, but with the cold, exhausted incomprehension of a man who cannot understand how the pieces refuse to move the way pieces have always moved for him. You could have burned it all down, he says quietly, so only I hear. The dragon. The crowd. You had the power to simply take it. Why the paper? Because taking it would have made me you, I say. And that's all. He goes. The aftermath takes days, and Miswa manages every hour of it, because winning the throne room was only the battle. The peace is its own war, and it's the one I'd have lost without a mind built for courts. The king, shown the full scope of the crime, does what a just king does when the evidence leaves him no other role to play. Lord Kasran and the first-order officials in the ledgers are arrested, their tax chain is dismantled, the illegal levies are ordered repaid to the districts they were bled from, a process that will take years but that begins publicly, at once, because the king needs the kingdom to see the crown correcting itself. Petition Day, which was meant to be theater, becomes the day the crown actually did justice, and the story of it spreads faster than any story since the tournament. The champion who walked into the throne room and put a prince's crimes in front of the king, and won with paper. And on the fourth day, the king grants the thing I asked for above all. A full royal pardon, proclaimed publicly, to every surviving member of the RUCI, and more than a pardon, a correction of the record. The 200 are declared not bandits but the king's wronged subjects, murdered in a crime against the crown, their names cleared, their memory restored. The line in the ledger that reduced them to pacification, Eastern districts. is read aloud in the same proclamation, so the whole kingdom knows exactly what was done to them and exactly that it has been undone. I bring the proclamation to Gunzo myself. He reads it in the townhouse, standing, and the 11 survivors he saved gather around him, and this hard, hollowed man who came to me weeks ago with a dead man's eyes reads the words that turn his 200 dead from thieves back into heroes, and he does not weep, because I don't think he can anymore. But he sits down, slowly, and puts the paper flat on the table and both hands over it, and stays like that for a long time, and the 11 stand around him with their hands on his shoulders, and something a year in the making finally sets down. When he can speak, he says, "The band's finished. The REUCI." He looks up at me. We were bandits because there was no justice to be had any other way. There's justice now. Their names are clean. The taxes are stopping. There's nothing left to steal for. He folds the proclamation carefully, like something sacred. I came to you for vengeance. You gave me justice instead. It turns out justice is the thing that lets a man stop. A pause. I'll disband them. Give the survivors their pardons and their freedom and let them go be farmers and fathers and whatever they were before all this. And you? I ask. Gunzo considers it. You told me the first day you don't own people. You'd only take me as a free man. He almost smiles, and on his ruined face it's more moving than any grin. So I'll stay as a free man. Not a bondsman. Not a servant working off a debt. I'll stay because I choose to, and because a man who wins wars with paper is worth following, and because... He glances at the 11, at Rena, at the whole strange household, because I don't have anywhere else I'd rather be. If you'll have me. There's a chair at the table, I say. There always was. Sora comes on the 5th day, alone without guards, which for a prince is its own kind of statement. I meet him on the roof, the same roof where I ate too much food under the open sky and learned I had something to lose. He stands at the low wall looking out over the city, and for a while neither of us says anything. He was going to have me executed, Sora says finally. My own brother. He built a treason out of my loneliness and was going to hang me for it, and I never saw it. I'd have walked right into it. He turns. You knew. Before petition day. You knew what he'd built between us. That's what the message meant. Trust me tomorrow. I couldn't tell you the whole of it. I say. Too many ears. If Kadaru had learned I knew, he'd have sprung it early. I had to ask you to hold still through the most frightening minutes of your life without knowing why. I meet his eyes. That was a lot to ask. You had every reason to think I was about to destroy you along with him. And you held still anyway. I held still. Sora says, because you're the only person who ever told me the truth. In the arena you refused to be my weapon, and you did it kindly, and you called me honorable in front of the whole court when you could have made me look a fool. Everyone else in my life has wanted to use me, my father, the nobles, my brother most of all. You're the only one who ever just. He stops and something raw crosses his face, treated me like a person instead of a piece on a board. You offered me a weapon, I say. I said I'd rather have a friend. I meant it. I know you did. Sora lets out a breath. That's the whole thing, isn't it? I asked for a weapon because leverage is the only language anyone ever taught me. And you gave me the one thing I didn't know how to ask for. He holds out his hand, the same gesture he made in the arena, but everything about it is different now. I don't want a champion, Takumi. I don't want an ally or a patron or a piece. I want a friend. The first real one I've ever had. If you'll have me not as a prince. As Sora. I take his hand. It's the 3rd time someone has said some version of if you'll have me to me this week, and I'm starting to understand that this being someone people want to belong to, not for a rank but for a face, is the thing I came to this world without knowing I was starving for. Friends cheaper, I say, the same words as the arena. No debt either way. And Sora laughs the real, startled laugh, the one I first pulled out of him on the sand, and this time it doesn't fade into calculation. It just stays, the laugh of a man who's finally free of his brother's shadow and has discovered, at the far end of the worst week of his life, that he's not alone. The face slap Kadaru never understood. He spent his whole life certain that a lonely prince and a commoner's champion, allied, meant treason. He was half right. It did mean the end of him. He just never grasped that it wasn't a conspiracy. It was a friendship. And a friendship is the one thing his machine had no counter for, because his machine was built by a man who never had one. The Duchess comes on the 6th day, and I've been waiting for her. Midori Kagayashi arrives serene as ever, and she looks at me the way she looked at me the night she left the gray book on the table, the patient, pricing look of a woman calculating a debt's return. The whole kingdom is talking about you, she says. The champion who toppled a prince with paper. Quite a return on a small gift, wouldn't you say? A rare charm book, given freely, and look what it helped you accomplish. Her smile is serene. I find myself in need of a small favor. A word in the right ear, now that so many ears will listen to you. Nothing improper. Merely, I used your book once, I say. She pauses. Once. On a single corrupt clerk. To make him linger over his dinner. I meet her serene eyes with my own. I never bent a will. Never turned a man against his master. Never became the instrument you gave it to me to be. I took the tool and I refused the leash the same way I refused a prince, and the same way I bound a great spirit without kneeling to it. I set the gray book on the table between us, closed. You gave me a gift designed to make me yours the more I used it. So I barely used it at all. There's no debt here, Duchess. You bet I was greedy enough to swallow the hook. I wasn't. You can have the book back, if you like. I got everything I needed from it in one small night, and none of it was the thing you were fishing for. Midori looks at the book. Then at me. And something moves behind her serene mask that I've never seen there before, not anger. Something closer to a connoisseur's rueful, genuine appreciation. Well, she says, after a long moment. That's the first time in 30 years anyone has taken one of my gifts and given me nothing in return. She doesn't touch the book. Keep it. A tool that rare shouldn't gather dust, and I find I'd rather it be held by the one man I've met who won't be corrupted by it. Her smile changes smaller, realer. You've made yourself something dangerous, champion. Not powerful. Untouchable. A man too public to move against, too loved to slander, too honest to trap, with a great spirit at his back and a prince for a friend and the king himself owing him the correction of his own kingdom. There isn't a player on the board who can use you now, myself included. She inclines her head, not a bow, but as close as a duchess comes. I don't often lose. I'll confess I rather enjoyed it. Do try not to become a bore now that you've won. She leaves the book. She leaves. And I understand that I've done the thing I set out to do the moment I refused a prince in the arena. I've made myself the one figure in the kingdom that no one, not duke, not duchess, not prince, not king, can move. Ryujin and Kaori reconcile on the 7th day, and it happens the way I always knew it would, if it happened at all, not through a mechanic, not through anything I could script, but through the Great Spirit finally seeing something it couldn't dismiss. I find them in the quarry, where it all began. Kaori summoned Ryujin there alone, and I arrived to find the Great Spirit ruler coiled against the pale sky and Kaori small beneath it, and something in the air between them has changed. The mortal, Ryujin says to me as I approach, tells me you refused to burn the palace down. Its cold sun's fix on me. You held a dragon that could have cracked the throne room like an egg, and a crowd of 10,000 that would have followed you anywhere, and the power to simply take what you wanted. And you won with paper instead. With a clerk's dinner and a copied ledger and the truth spoken in the light. A long pause. I have served and refused to serve mortal masters for 400 years. Every one of them, given the power you held that day, would have used it. You are the first who did not. I've watched people be erased by power that didn't think, I say. In another life. It's not a thing I want to be. Ryujin regards me for a long, ancient moment. And then it does something I've never seen it do. It turns its great cold gaze on Kaori, and the contempt that has lived there since the day she summoned it, the pride that would not forgive her line, the coldness that was its own kind of cruelty, is simply gone. Summoner, it says. And nothing else, at first. Then, your ancestors tried to leash me, and I hated them for it, and I hated you for the crime of your blood before you ever spoke. That was unjust of me. You offered me equal terms, when it counted. And you have kept them. You have never once, in all these weeks, tried to command me, though you had every mortal reason to want to. The great head lowers, until one vast cold sun eye is level with a small woman who spent years believing she was a failure. I watched a mortal win a war today without a single killing, without a single lie, holding a power he refused to abuse. And I find I no longer wish to be cold to the one who summoned me into the company of such a man. The wound between us was mine to close, not yours. I close it now. If you will let me. Kaori, who carried the stone of her broken bond for years, who finally held the thing she longed for only to find it still didn't love her, stands very still. And then she reaches out slowly, and lays her small hand against the great scaled jaw, and Ryujin does not pull away. I let you, she says. Her voice shakes. I've wanted to let you for weeks. I just didn't think you'd ever ask. The great spirit ruler closes its cold sun eyes, and something in the ancient air of the quarry settles a bond that closed with a handshake, finally warming into something more, a wound years in the carrying, finally healed. I leave them there. Some things aren't mine to witness to the end. Mizwa, I ask last, because I'm half afraid of the answer. You joined a plan that could have gotten your summoner killed, I say. It didn't. It worked. Perfectly, thanks to you. We're on the roof, the small unassuming spirit and I, watching the city that no longer feels strange. Which means you're free to go home now. Back to the courts of your own realm. This war's over. You don't owe me anything, and I never leashed you, same as Ryujin. Mizwa considers this, small and calm and clear-eyed, folding its hands in the way it does before it says something it's thought about carefully. In 1,000 years, it says, I have untangled a great many courts. I have watched a great many powerful mortals hold a great many powerful advantages. And in every single case, everyone, without exception, when the mortal held the power to simply burn his enemy down, he burned him down. Force is the water all power runs downhill toward. I had come to believe it was a law of your kind. It turns its clear eyes on me. And then I watched you hold a dragon and a mob and a crowd and the truth all at once, and choose to win with a copied ledger and a clerk's late dinner, because winning any other way would have made you into the thing you fought. Do you understand how rare that is? I have waited 1,000 years to see it. I am not going home now that I finally found the one mortal worth staying for. A small, precise smile. Rarely does a man solve his wars with paper when he could just burn the palace down. I'd like to see what else you do. If you'll have me. 4 times now, this week. If you'll have me. There's a chair at the table, I say, the same as I said to Gunzo. There always was. That night the whole household is on the roof again because it's ours now, truly ours, the king having granted the townhouse and its grounds to the champion who corrected the kingdom, so it belongs to us in law and not just in rent. There's too much food, because there's always too much food when Rina does the buying. Gunzo is here as a free man, and the 11 he saved come and go below, farmers and fathers again. Sora is here, not as a prince, just as Sora, arguing with Rina about grapes and losing. Hataka refills Kaori's cup without being asked, and Kaori actually laughs, easy and unguarded, the stone gone from her at last, and Ryujin, coiled at the roof's edge, is coiled near her now, not apart, and Mizwa sits small and content watching all of us like the most beautiful knotted ever untied. And I sit with my back against the low wall, looking out over Asteria, and I take my inventory the way I always do. I came here a lake that was 2 meters wide and evaporating. No. That was someone else's story. I came here a nobody in a stolen-looking coat, level 1, broke, arrested within the hour, valued by no one, a man who had built his entire self out of a number on a leaderboard and lost it in an afternoon and thrown away the rest. And now the king owes me the correction of his own kingdom. Now a prince calls me friend. Now a duchess who's never lost in 30 years concedes she can't move me. Now a great spirit ruler stays by choice, and a 1,000-year-old mind pulled up a chair at my table, and a knight and a brawler and a summoner and a free man look at me across a roof full of food and know my face. Not my rank know that I eat porridge wrong and mutter numbers, and nearly died to a thug on my first day and cannot fight without a plan and are still, all of them improbably here. In the old world, I was number 1. A name at the top of a table that 10 million people saw and not one person knew. I gave my whole life to it, and when it was deleted there was nothing underneath, because I had made myself out of a number, and numbers can be erased. Here I am not a number anyone can erase. Here I am known. And needed. And chosen over and over. If you'll have me for who I am and not for what I rank. You've got the soft face again, Rina says, squinting at me across the roof. The weird one. He's happy, Hataka says, not looking up. It still looks strange on him. But less strange than it used to. I catch the grape Rina throws me, and I look out at the city, the once strange now home city, chanting my name somewhere in its taverns, a name that means a man and not a rank. Number one, I think. I spent my whole life certain I knew what those words meant, and I bled everything I had to hold them, and holding them left me with nothing. I was wrong about what they meant. Completely, gloriously wrong. This a roof, a family, a home, people who know my face, this is what being number one was always supposed to mean. I just had to lose the wrong kind to find the right one. I like it far better than I ever imagined. I don't say any of that out loud. It'd ruin the mood, and Rena would make it weird. I just eat the grape, and I let myself be happy, and for the first time since I opened my eyes in that gutter for the first time in far longer than that I don't need anything more than exactly this.